Here we go.
G'day fans and welcome back to another exciting episode of Rip It Off the Card. The best news I have got for you this week is I'm feeling a lot better. After 2 weeks of being coughing my guts up and COVID and this and that and being as sick as an absolute woofer, I sound the same. I'm not coughing anywhere near as much and I'm feeling a lot healthier, which is the most important thing. Mr. Aaron, how are you going, old son?
It's been good, and I put you back to work this weekend because we hadn't worked together for quite a while, and I got into work late, and one of our customers had been kind enough to buy me a sausage, and because I was in work 10 minutes late, they ate the sausage on me as well. Hello, Dicko, if you're watching.
Now, it's very funny you should mention that, right? So I go to work on Saturday at Aaron's store because I hadn't been there for about a couple of weeks, and Aaron says, I need all of these things moved from there to there, those things moved from there to there, and these things moved from there to there. So I was actually worked like a woofer. Got like Aaron was like kicking me around going, come on, work a bit harder. And I was thinking, mate, what is the deal? He used to be a good, kind-hearted boss. Now he's just turned into a tyrant. But look, the cool thing was, and it was all good. It was actually a bit of fun and we got a lot of stuff done. The cool thing was, and Dicko's with me right now, which is cool. Evening, guys. Yeah, very, very cool. The last 2 hours, Aaron buggered off out of the store, left me to my own devices. Right now, luckily, Dicko was there with me because I was on the brink of announcing an 85% off everything sale for the last 2 hours. I was psyched and pumped and ready to go. Everything must go. I even said to Dicko, who's a bit of a pop, what do you call it? Pop vinyl fan. Dude, buy one, get the rest free. How good would that have been, Mr. Aaron? You come back next day and there's an empty store there. Mate, dude, sold it all. How good's this?
Buy one, get the 300 for free, and he still wouldn't have bought one.
Absolutely fantastic. Oh, look at Kelvin, get the slave work. I tell you, drops of sweat and everything go on. And he said, no, put that over there, move this over here, and all sort of thing. But in the end, it was all very, very good. We cleaned up the store, and the store is looking particularly cool. If you're into comics and big-ass graphic novels and shit like that, there's stacks of them in the store at the moment. It is very, very groovy. And the funny thing was, when I was by myself, customers came in. I actually did sell stuff because I have that ability. And so I bought an item. I didn't even know the store even had it. They just walk over with this thing and go, where did you find that? It was like hidden away in a shelf somewhere. So, yeah, mate, you got stuff tucked away everywhere in that store, haven't you, mate?
I know, it's absolutely crazy. And the reason I get you to do everything is because it's called Aaron's Collectibles and not Darren's Collectibles.
Yeah, well, that's true. So, very, very cool. Yes, it is, Guy. Yes, it is party time. Now, the biggest thing for tonight, and I don't think he's here with us at the moment, which is really unfortunate, is it's actually the Vile's birthday. So how good is that? Look, I've even got a nice background on the outside of the slide and everything. So this picture was taken in 2013 for the Return of the Jedi 30th anniversary banquet. The Vile painted up his own cloak, looking absolutely spectacular, had made his own hat and everything. And so it is his birthday today, which of course means it is, hang on, press the right button, International Violation Day. How good is that? So mark it down in your calendars, kids. It is International Violation Day. And I'll tell you what, you'd be like this person, I'd rather be violated. What do you reckon about that, Mr. Aaron?
Well, if it's International Violation Day, what kind of things do you do to celebrate it? Traffic violations?
That is a damn good question. You'd have to say, how am I going to violate the day? What's the deal? So, like when she said, I'd rather be violated, you can interpret that in many different ways. So, what do you reckon? I
don't know. Tainting food, scaring children. I don't know.
Tell you what, the scaring kids bit sort of works for me, so that's a particular call. Anyway, we've got a very, very good show tonight, guys. We've got packed full of stuffs. It's going to be complete and utter nerdy madness, which is particularly cool. So hopefully you'll stick around to the end, especially for later on when we start talking about the old Starlogs, which is particularly groovy. But before we do that, and no, we're not talking about freaking Docky Who, we're talking about this. So, Mr. Aaron, we're talking about some latest collectibles. Is that correct?
We are, and I bet you're really happy that there isn't any Doctor Who this week.
Oh, like your 2 weeks of Docky Who, I tell you what, it was enough to bring up my lunch. So there you go. Very, very grimmy. So we're talking about another franchise that has done extremely well in the past 4.5 decades. And of course, a bit of the old Star Wars. And of course, with Star Wars, they're still producing more stuff. Is that right, Mr. Aaron?
There is, and Hot Toys are bringing out just what everybody didn't ask for: a Chrome Stormtrooper. Now, it's a Stormtrooper, and it's basically like the Phasma armor in the shiny chrome, but it is one of those special editions where just for no reason they've decided to take one of their old figures and chrome it. What do you think of a Chrome Stormtrooper?
Friggin' ridiculous. Utterly pointless. The only reason you should have a chrome one is if you're doing Captain Phasma, but just a random dude, all chrome, it makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, the chroming itself it probably looks impressive, but it doesn't make any sense as to why they would have done it. So
it is one of those really bizarre things. They have in the past done a copper coloured Stormtrooper and a chocolate coloured Stormtrooper. They've also done one which is like a teapot, which was like porcelain with blue patterning on. All of them are limited edition collectibles, but like Christy just said, why? Some of these collectibles you don't actually need. They produce them because they've obviously got a Stormtrooper mold and they can whack a different finish to it, and it's a cheaper toy to make. So if you do like your Stormtroopers and you want to bolster your armies of the Empire, you could probably add this to it. But for me, it didn't press any of my buttons.
nah, it makes no sense. Ironically, though, it was very funny because if you wind your clock back, and funnily enough, we'll be doing this for the 70s talk later on, when Star Wars come out, the Stormtroopers are white, and when Battlestar came out, their Cylons were chrome. And you go, oh, the Cylons look grouse because they were chrome. Any other color, they just would look very ordinary. So you do wonder, well, what if you just sort of tinker with the franchise a little bit and make the Stormtroopers chrome, and just see how that works? And of course, they couldn't have done it; it would have cost them a mother's fortune to do it. So it would have been interesting to see what they would have looked like. But the fact that they weren't chrome in the first place, you do want it's a bit of a pointless exercise. So,
well, what you've done now, you've given Hot Toys like new ideas because they can have the gold chrome Stormtrooper, who's their leader now.
Well, it's funny because when we were like originally, when people said, "Oh, let's have black Stormtroopers, have them all in black," and people thought, "Why would you? You lose all the detail." And of course, they did that with the Death Troopers in Rogue One, and for whatever reason, Stormtroopers just look damn good in white. And of course, the mindset that someone had about why they were in white in the first place is because they deliberately wanted to be seen, because it was a way of saying we're not afraid of anybody. Here we are. We're in white. You can see us from space practically. And I always liked that concept. I thought it worked really, really groovy, considering like people like Beta and like were black. So there you go. Very, very cool. Williams just asked you a Docky Who question. I'm not even going to put that on the screen because, as Daniel said, thank the gods there's no Docky Who. Absolutely, even though he brought up Docky Who in your store a couple of weeks ago. Let's not worry about that.
What Williams is actually talking about, I nearly put in the news, and that's the announcement of the Season 2 Doctor Who Blu-ray, which has all the bells and whistles and cleaned up. I'm disappointed about it because they haven't got the 2 missing episodes of Crusade back. But apart from that, it's a fantastic release. On you go, sir.
Oh, dude, I'm so sick of the Docky Who, I'm just going to get rid of him altogether. So anyway, it's about me now. Mate, get over it. Let's move on. Bob has said he's back. He's the Quizats Hatterack. Completely the incorrect spelling for Quizats. But, yeah, I mean, William won't be happy because that's a June reference. But there you go. It is all good. Very, very exciting stuff. Now, still sticking with the news, of course. Now, if you see this, without looking at the title, you could be sitting there thinking, which movie are we looking at? And, of course, it's the old Dark Fate. But I thought it could have been Genesis as well, couldn't it?
It could have been.
But it's not. Hang on. Before you go any further, the Vile has finally joined us. We actually gave you a bit of a happy birthday message at the start of the show, Mr. Vile, which you've unfortunately missed. So if you get a chance, you'll have to go back and rewatch that. Anyway, dude, talk us about a bit of the old... I've forgotten this character's name now because you had... in Genesis, he had one name, and Dark Fate, he had another.
It's just Arnold Schwarzenegger full-size bust. Let's call it that.
That'll do.
This is obviously one of those things. This is a 1-to-1 scale bust, and it does look like you're taking photos there of Arnold Schwarzenegger. It is quite an amazing likeness. And interestingly, for busts, usually they have painted hair and things like this, but the facial hair on this is absolutely amazing. You could be mistaken into thinking these were pictures of an older Arnold Schwarzenegger. Being one of these size busts, of course, it's quite expensive and you're going to need a lot of room to display it. But what I really like they have done the half cybernetic version, so you can see the endoskeleton underneath the skin in places, and particularly with the arm. So you can have this like displayed in different ways. So it can highlight the his face if you have it, I guess, tilted to the left, or the cybernetic part of him if it's tilted to the right. Comes on a custom base, which is of course based on the endoskeleton as well. This is one of those pieces I'm in two minds about, because if I was going to buy a full-size Arnie bust, it'd be from Terminator or Terminator 2, probably not from anything that followed that, the Salvations and the Dark Fates and the Genesises and the Terminator 3s or whatever. But I did think this was quite an amazing likeness, and if you're a Terminator fan and you've got a little bit of room and a lot of cash, this is something that you could probably get.
I'm understanding that you're saying it's 1-to-1 scale, so it's the full size of a human head and torso. Yeah, this thing's enormous.
Yeah. So yeah, it is.
I agree with you. I think given the option, you'd go for a Terminator 2 version. Give him the glasses, because he still has the arm. You remember he sleeves his arm in that. To do it from Dark Fate, I mean, no one gives a shit about Dark Fate, just like they don't give a shit about Genesis. It's like you've picked this fantastic character. You've done this fantastic bust, and I agree with you. It looks exactly like Arnie with the hair and the beard and all that. But you've picked the worst movie to stick it from, to put him from, and it's like you almost like you just want to pencil out Dark Fate and put in like either Terminator 1 or 2. So unbelievable. So yeah, I don't get that.
Hours of fun going around to your friend's house and knocking on the door and then holding that up next to the peephole, so when they look through, they think Arnold Schwarzenegger is there for them.
Yeah, I can imagine the amount of people who walk into a store, see the fact that it says Dark Fate, and they go, "You going to buy this today?" It's like, no, I'll be back. And of course, they don't come back at all. So, but yeah, of all the movies to pick, I mean, anything from Genesis to Dark Fate, you just like pack up, go home, don't even bother trying. So, completely useless. Yes, I like this ex-governator. Yes, indeed,
Yes.
doody-doody. Because you forget that Arnie actually had a political career as the governor of California. Very good stuff. The Vile said he has a bust from Salvation, even if the film was average. I actually like Salvation. I actually thought it was quite good. But yeah, Genesis and Dark Fate, you can just leave at the front door. Speaking of things that look particularly groovy, going in a completely different tangent, you've got a bit of Killer Clowns action, dude.
Now, when it comes to sci-fi circus movies, there's not many, is there? But this is one of the greatest ones. It's a sci-fi horror, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. It's a tongue-in-cheek horror. The aliens come down in a giant circus tent. The aliens look like clowns, and they convert and eat people, especially young children who they can lure into their tent. It's unusual. They've only done a couple of figures from this before. I think they are good figures because clowns and things bright like that in horror movies often make good action figures because they stand out from all your grimy Texas Chainsaw, Jason, Michael Myers type figures in the cabinet. So if you do like this kind of movie, this is a double pack of 2 of the clowns with some of their different accessories. And usually this stuff doesn't roll around very often. So these will be out for 6 months and disappear, and they won't be another issue of these for 10 or 20 years, I would say. So something a little off kilter, the Killer Clowns, you don't see much of it, but I thought I'd just highlight it because I love horror, I like sci-fi, and I like obscure stuff, and that ticks all the boxes.
A couple of things. Christy, I just want to say, has said about the Vile, about violating another year. I totally agree with that because it is the Vile's birthday today. It is interesting, the clown concept, because clearly it's meant to be something that's joyful for kids, circuses and fairs and all the rest of it. And then you put a dark twist on them and clowns become scary. And if you remember the movie Poltergeist, for example,
Yes.
He has the clown toy at the end of the bed. And of course, there's a thunderstorm outside and he's freaking out about this clown at the end of the bed. And of course, at some point, the clown disappears, it just vanishes. Oh my God, how scary is that? So it is interesting how you can take something which is meant to be really, really pleasant and enjoyable and completely change it in the other way. And it works really well. A lot of people, there's actually I think there's actually a term for people who are afraid of clowns. It's not clownitis. There's an actual medical term for it.
It's called wusses. But there's two things in horror movies you don't want to disappear. That's snakes and clown toys.
Yeah, exactly right. So very, very cool. Oh my God, what's this? Love me some killer clowns to violate. Oh, mate, interpret that any way you want. Fairy floss people, yum yum. Yeah, right. Very good. Yes, indeedy, doody, doddy. So the Viles is certainly enjoying his birthday for today. So there you go. So that's the toys for today. So if you like killer clowns, be sure to go and check it out, which is particularly cool. Now, it is now time for this very, very famous segment that we all love so much.
Useless Pop of the Week!
And as always, here's an opportunity for you to try and work out, what is this? What do you reckon, Mr. Aaron? I looked at this and I thought, by itself, what do people think this pop happens to be? And I'll tell you what I think it was, but it wasn't. So
it's one of the few pops that has some nice eye makeup happening, doesn't it? She's got a bit of eyeshadow there. So you don't see that in pops. Usually they just have the cold, dead eyes like Bruce the Shark from Jaws.
Yeah, exactly right. The Moneybags have said about the same people who are scared of balloons. Yeah, well, balloons are unbelievably scary. What can I say? Christy said, Effie. Effie who? Effie from the comedy company or something. So there you go. Very, very cool. What do you say?
Effie from Acropolis Now, I would think.
Oh, yeah. Very, very cool. William said Galadriel from the Ruins of Power. But it looks like Moneybags might be on the thing. Wonder Woman, but his question mark, he's not entirely sure why it would be. When I looked at it, I thought he could easily think it was Princess Leia, but the sword kind of gives it away. And Gavin has said Wonder Woman as well. And as it turns out, you're right. Where is this from? It looks nothing like Wonder Woman, dude. What's the deal?
Well, we've highlighted Wonder Woman before, haven't we? Because there was another Wonder Woman that looked absolutely nothing like Wonder Woman. And it just shows you that Pop are really trying to capitalize. They've done Wonder Woman in all her stars and stripes from the different era, and she's still a popular character. So they've gone, what can we do? Let's release Wonder Woman when she doesn't look like Wonder Woman and try and capitalize on that. So this is one that's coming out. I just thought, who is going to buy this? If you love Wonder Woman, this is not the version of Wonder Woman you want to get. This is just for the total completists that have to get every single version of Wonder Woman that comes out. I don't think anyone saw this movie and go, this figure and go, grouse, this is the one version I was waiting for.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because I'm having to use the magnifying glass of truth, and it says Ultra something Moo Mod whatever secret agent, and you're right. Without the stars and stripes and all the rest of it, it could be anybody, and you get the feeling with the hairstyle and the eyeshadow, they've just stolen a pop from something else and just whacked it in the box and said, "Yep, off we go," because Wonder Woman fans will have to get this. But there's absolutely, I agree with you, William. Punt it. It's completely rubbish. So they've just cashed on in. And Guy said Joan of Arc, and I think that's not a bad guess, actually, but obviously it's not. So I reckon that's a complete waste of time and money, and I think anybody who spends money on this needs their head read.
Well, I can tell you something. Yes. You could repackage that as Joan of Arc, and no one would bat an eyelid, I tell you.
Yeah, and I agree with what you've said. If you can't tell what it is based on just the image of the item by itself, then clearly it is wrong. So they've done something in the marketing department to try to cash cow. Thanks, Mr. Phil. Yes, exactly right. I agree, Gavin. Yeah, get Linda Carter any day. So, and it could be, doesn't even look like her. So
that would be an awesome pop, though, wouldn't it? The Sunrise cash cow as a pop.
Well, it's halfway there. I mean, you get her and you just put the black spots on and just change the head. You never know. The cash cow with a sword. Yay, team. Very good. Aaron's wife, after he buys more collectibles. Yeah, make of that anyway, you will. So there you go. Oh, speaking of which, this is what I love about this show right now. People who watch this don't get to see this, but there's all these comments constantly being posted by people on the show. This one popped up from the Vile. It's completely meaningless to what we're talking about, right? The Vile said, he also got a 14-inch Gilman. Make of that what you will. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm just going to leave it at that, and people can interpret it whatever they want to say. What do you reckon there, Mr. Aaron?
I'm imagining Gil Gerard there visiting the Viles place.
He's got 14-inch Gilman there, and he's ready to party hard. What can I say? Ready to violate the Gilman. All 14 inches of him. Unbelievable. Good stuff. Hang on, I've got a cough because after all. Jesus Christ. Where are we going with this? All right. I completely forgot where we are. All right. So it's now time to move on to something particularly exciting. So as you can see, the useless pop of the week really was quite useless. But is this useless? That's a question you've got to ask yourself. All right. It's time for a bit of Greg King's Cheaper Things. And Aaron, as you often do, you continue to buy stuff.
I do. I have a compulsion to buy stuff on the behalf of the Soul Greg King to scour the internet, bringing amazing bargains to our viewers and also horrible products for us to shame. This week,
I'm going to cut you off. Phil was on the money on this one. He said it might have been Erin Gray's character Wilma from Buck Rogers as in the pop. That would have been closer to that character than Wonder Woman. So yeah, well done, Mr. Phil. So there you go. Sorry, dude. I just want to get that in.
No, that's absolutely true. That is a good comment there, actually. So this week, everybody knows the Soul Greg King helps me buy things for the shop. And usually they're things that I would buy myself because I'm the money behind this segment, basically. So this week we've got a couple of things that are quite interesting that we've bought.
Here we go.
So for all you horror hounds, this is one of those iconic props from an amazing series of horror and TV series as well. It's the Necronomicon from Evil Dead. So I found this. It's from one of our great suppliers. You've got Ronnie at AliExpress, and this popped up on their website. And this is a real leather bound book with hand-drawn spells and diagrams on how to resurrect people, conjure demons, and all that kind of gnarly stuff that you do in high school at sleepovers. How much would you expect to pay for something like this, Dags?
Oh, if it's real genuine leather and no expense spared in putting it together, it's got to be a massive $20.
I know, and it's got that mark of approval, 60% off. Now that's the prices. If you get what you're actually looking at, that's quite good because we have already ordered replicas of Book of the Life and Book of the Dead from the Mummy, and they looked fantastic. And when they turned up, they were these resin shells that were like jewelry boxes or something. Nothing at all like what was advertised. But I'm taking a punt. I popped it in the cart. But before I could sign out and buy it, something else popped up on the, if you have purchased this will probably interest you too.
Well, I'll tell you what, Chrissy's asked, is it real human leather? It could have come from Ronnie's personal backside. You never know. But what else did Aaron buy? Check it out, kids.
Well, this is actually the same item, Dags. We're still one slide ahead. So this is some of the other pictures that were on the inside of the book. So you can see it is a replica of the spells, the incantations, the diagrams, the pictures of the zombies and the deadites and all those gnarly things that was in Evil Dead. If it turns up for $19 Australian, I would be very, very happy because it looks like a very cool piece.
I love the word if. Sorry, so we got our pictures a bit out of whack. So this is the next one. Oh, here we go.
Now, this is something that's super cool. This is Vigo the Carpathian from Ghostbusters 2, one of the coolest villains from the Ghostbusters franchise, actually. And he is, of course, the evil Carpathian warlock that Spirit was imprisoned inside a painting that tried to resurrect itself and take over Dana Barrett's child, Oscar, in Ghostbusters 2. So this is a silk screen print. So it's not even a poster. It's higher quality than a poster. And it came in different sizes. I don't know if you can actually see that just below the amount. And there's, I think, 6 different sizes. Now, when it originally came up, the smallest size was only $3 with free postage. So that was pretty cheap. But I wanted one that was sort of the poster from the picture from the movie size. So I went to the biggest one, and that bumped the price up to $12 Australian, which I still think is really good if it comes, and it's a really nice silk screen of the original painting. So I whacked that in the box with the Evil Dead book, and we've got a sort of horror box coming if it turns up.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, isn't it? It's like they've whacked it in a box that you're never ever going to get. Guy said it looks awesome. Of course, it looks awesome. It's meant to look awesome. That's how people like Aaron keep getting ripped off. So your shopping cart, look at that. They're chucking them away.
Yeah, Ronnie has told us the pictures that they use are just representations of what you might get. It isn't always the product that you will get. And I have a horrible, horrible feeling that the Book of the Dead is not going to be leather, is not going to have all the hand-drawn inside. It's going to be a cheap, like, photocopy with some plush crap on the outside of it. I could be surprised because we have had a run which have been quite disappointing where stuff's turned up and it's actually quite good. How could you stuff up a silk screen, though? I think we'll get the painting.
Well, the thing is, right, you're paying chicken feed for it. And it's like your McDonald's Big Mac, as Ronnie would say, just because it looks good in the picture doesn't mean it's going to look good in real life. And as we've seen, we've had more when things do turn up, more bad sort of like victories and really good victories, if that makes sense. And so the chances of this looking as Mickey Mouse as it does in the pictures is pretty slim if it turns up. And as we've said before, you've got actually a backlog of things that still have just never arrived, even from last year. If you remember your Halloween stuff from last year, you still didn't arrive. So it's just gone, disappeared into the ether. So why should this be any different, eh? Now, sorry, go on.
Because I know Ronnie. I know a man in the factory who's helping us out.
With that in mind, Aaron decided to send Ronnie a message, say, dude, there's more money coming your way. So this is what Aaron had to say to Ronnie.
Hey, Ronnie, I'm just letting you know that I have ordered more from your website. The Necronomicon prop book with the evil spells and haunted silk painting of Vigo the Carpathian from Ghostbusters. Can you please ship to me swiftly and also confirm I will be able to raise the dead with the spells in the book? I wish to resurrect Vigo using the evil book and start a horrible reign of terror. Your friend, Aaron.
So the way to get attention from people like Ronnie is to chuck money at them, right? They fall asleep. If you're just talking waffle, or as he said in his previous messages, people just yell at him at uppercase in the emails. You send him some money, right? Suddenly Ronnie wakes up and all of a sudden he's on your Christmas card list. So what do you reckon Ronnie had to say about this latest order?
Hi, Aaron. Thank you for all your renewed orders. I am sure you are now #1 customer. I think you joke about evil spirits and book and painting. You are a funny guy. I will give your orders top priority and you will see them so soon it isn't funny. Ronnie.
What a load of utter shit, isn't it, eh? Oh, suddenly you're the #1 customer. 5 days ago, he couldn't give a rat's bum about you, but suddenly you're the coolest dude in town. How good is that, Mr. Aaron?
Pretty good, but then I sent a little thing back.
You did.
Dear Ronnie, I'm not joking. I want real evil book and painting.
Absolutely fantastic. So there you go, kids. Hang on, I've got to have a cough.
So Ronnie didn't reply to that one. I guess he did figure I was joking. I'm not joking. I really want the book that does what it says on the cover.
Phil's right. The Ronnie saga continues, and you're right. And it shouldn't even be a saga, but it is a saga. So there you go. So first thing, I mean, the key thing is that when you've ordered items and they turn up and they're the wrong items, they look nothing like the pictures, that's how we can make a joke of it. When they don't turn up at all, like your Home for Hobbits and various other bits and pieces, the whole segment is kind of dead. So if these things we shouldn't say if, because you shouldn't have to say but if these things do turn up, at least we'll be able to see what it's all about. But currently it's not looking too flash.
Have we only known Ronnie?
And hang on, sorry, cut you off. And Chrissy's right. Last week you're an annoying customer. This week you're #1 customer. Amazing how what $40 will do, eh?
Yeah, we've only known. I think Ronnie is just this season. We've had other customer assistants that have been just as helpful as Ronnie in the past, but he's lasted so long that we're not quite at war and peace with him. But we've got sort of 50 shades of Ronnie happening, haven't we?
Oh, geez, there's a movie I want to sort of pass on a dark and stormy night. Kelvin has asked, are you going to cast a spell on Ronnie? Yeah, the spell would be to Ronnie, deliver your effing items, dude, and make sure they look the same as they do in the pictures. So there you go. Anyway, that's what's happening with the Greg King's Cheaper Things. We'll see if the items do turn up, cross our fingers, and we shall go from there. Don't forget, when they do turn up, Ronnie, of course, will then review them, say them the greatest products in the entire universe. If the human leather or the leather on the book is from his own backside, that'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it, eh? So there you go. Very good. The Vile has said, starting a cult, the Vile Eternal with Aaron in charge. Speaking of which, it is his birthday today. And, of course, you got to celebrate with a birthday surprise. It is, of course, the Lord Vile's Vile File. And the timing could not be any better. Isn't that right, Mr. Aaron? Because of what we're talking about today.
Absolutely. And, Dags, you can confirm this with me. I did not know it was the Vile's birthday today until you told me earlier today. And just the topic of the Vile Final lines up perfectly.
It does. And in fact, someone else must know more than we do because there's a bit of correspondence that's come in.
Dear Master Vile, I'm looking online for cakes for an upcoming birthday. And I found that I couldn't get one that was perfect. I remember you were doing party cakes. Do you have any new you can share? From James Damon.
Now, the thought of violating a birthday cake, just put that image in your head, people out there. I want to violate a birthday cake. That has just got American Pie written all over it. But let's move on from there because we're heading over. Where am I going with this? The Vile's Pastisserie. Is that right, Mr. Aaron?
It is. Unfortunately, the Vile, what that viewer was talking about earlier in the year, the Vile ran a child's party, I guess, organisation for organising parties and doing cakes and all that kind of thing. Unfortunately, that has been closed down. That no longer exists. We don't know what happened there, but so he's moved his culinary expertise and his patisserie expertise over into the Vile Patisserie, where he is still forging ahead with making unique and interesting cakes for all occasions.
Very good. And just backtracking a bit, I like this one from Colin E saying about the book you're trying to get from the leather-bound book from Ronnie. Yes, the book is going to be able to be used to resurrect all those missing products that you never received. I do like the sound of that. So there you go. On the dark side of the Force moves in mysterious ways, especially when you're violating it. All right, so it's the Vile's birthday, right? And the Vile is renowned for creating fantastic birthday cards, but we're talking about cakes. Isn't that right, Mr. Aaron? So what birthday cake would suit the Vile?
Well, the Vile does cakes for all occasions, and there's some here that are really interesting, and some that I don't know what you would use them to. But I think it's interesting. He's had a go at the Avengers there with Jesus, and the Hulk didn't fit on that cake, so we've got the Hulk gets his own cake to the side there that you could probably buy the Avengers minus the Hulk, and then the Hulk cake by itself. What I did think was really interesting was Jewish Captain America, where you've just got the shield there. So the Vile caters for everyone of every faith. Now, we'll skip across that one in the middle to the other side, and you can see he does highly accurate representations and reproductions of different logos. And the Avengers logo there would make any child or any adult happy if they had a cake that wonderful for their birthday. But Dags, I have a question for our viewers. Does anybody know what the cake in the bottom middle is meant to be?
That looks like a fanboy who's been absolutely and well and truly violated.
Well, I thought you were going to say the Vile when he dresses up to go to an Essendon game, but it's not that either. So it is a Marvel character. Does anyone want to have a quick guess before we have to move on?
And while people are guessing, the dude up here, that looks like Qui-Gon Jinn from bloody Phantom Menace. So they've got their franchises all asked about, haven't they? So there you go.
Really is.
Phil has said Darth Maul. Christy has said Deadpool, and Kelvin has said Deadpool. So there you go.
Well, it is actually Deadpool. But that's I guess the zombie version of Deadpool. I don't know what the Vile used as teeth, if it's his Tic Tacs or something like that, but it has made Deadpool particularly lifelike and would go down a huge hit at a child's party.
Bob has said he's a Chad.
No, Bob, Chad's teeth aren't that nice.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, very, very cool. So that was Deadpool gone wrong. Clearly, Deadpool's been chasing too many parked cars, almost as bad as these guys.
So it's not just Marvel that the Vile can make in cake form. He also does some DC stuff. You can see at the bottom as well, he swings both ways, Marvel and DC. You can see we've got you've a Batman bust. And I guess it's probably one of the better ones. And we've got a Superman bust there. And he's managed to eerily capture Superman's likeness in that one. Down the bottom, we've got Black Cyclops Superman. So I don't know what he was going for there. Maybe one of the Jordan Peele versions of Superman that might be coming up in the future. But the one on the bottom left, I think, is the one that every guy would love to have at their party. That is the Marvel and DC team up where they've all gone down to the beach to get a tan and doing muscle poses. Don't you want that for your next birthday cake, Dags?
Where do you stick the knife when you're going to do the thing? Now, the top left on the Batman one, I like this one, Christy, the Batgirl who couldn't hold it in. He does look like he's a tad constipated, doesn't he? He's about to lose his load. It's obviously a chocolate cake.
Well, it looks like...
oh, God damn it. So, yes, a very, very good. Last one is Manoid Superman. Yes, exactly right. Why would Spider-Man, Batman, and Iron Man start doing poses at the beach? And, of course, you do wonder, is that meant to be the web coming out of Spider-Man there? It's just not a very good position for it, is it?
Of course it is. I love how Sully goes, what the hell is that meant to be, like pretending that wasn't his birthday cake this year.
Oh, I love it. I mean, where do you put the candles? That's what I want to know. So it's a tad wrong, isn't it? So like it, yeah, 3 fats and 3 hunks, indeed, if you want to call them hunks. Good stuff. Well, anyway, one of those birthday cakes could be yours, Mr. Vile, or maybe it could be one of these.
Now, here's some more stunning ones. You've got a highly accurate Wolverine there. The detailing on the muscles is absolutely fantastic. They've even, put a little shirt on him. But what the Vile does, he's really artistic when it comes to drawing. And some of the cake tins, when he does a consignment piece, he'll get a cake tin, and the cake tins actually come with an inner layer that show you how the cake is meant to be. And you can see in the top there that there's a Spider-Man cake tin, and the guide art of what the cake is meant to be iced like is that Spider-Man. And then the cake the Vile has done beside it, obviously someone asked for a modification. It's like albino Spider-Man or something with little tiny dog legs down the front. But it is an artistic masterpiece. And I think the other one that's fantastic is the Iron Man head there, where me, being a capitalist dog, had asked, I wanted a money till for my birthday, and then I cancelled because I couldn't afford the prices. So the Vile didn't throw it out; he just turned it into Iron Man, and you've just got a boxy Iron Man that looks like the shape of a cash register. And also, the Vile does requests. If you send him a photo, he will replicate that cake so exactly you cannot tell the difference from the original. And you can see the Vile was sent in a Wonder Woman cake, and then you have the exact replica that he was able to create from that picture next to it. And as you can see, he absolutely nailed Wonder Woman.
Oh, in more ways than one. Andrew said, yep, I agree, it's so lifelike. You do think about that Spider-Man one, right? Can you imagine the kid up here when the mother says, well, assume it's the mother, right? Could be the father, says, yep, I'm going to make you a Spider-Man cake. It's going to look just like that one right there. And, of course, the party time comes around, and he's got this thing up here, and you go, oh, that is just such a letdown. Unbelievable. I've got to say, though, the Iron Man one I don't mind. I actually think that's quite okay. But, yeah, Wonder Woman, she kind of got jibbed kind of seriously. And, in fact, with Iron Man, I like that. Yeah, it looks like a toaster. I totally agree with you on that one. So, unbelievable. Very, very good. At least Wolverine looks like a bit of work has gone into it, which is particularly cool. But yeah, Spider-Man, he has had a hard day at the office. All right, what else have we got? Oh, here we go.
Well, if you are Star Wars inclined, the Vile has got the cake for you. As you can see at the top left there, he has an exact, it's so uncanny version of Darth Vader's helmet. It looks like it was a cake made by Don Post himself. I mean,
is that what it is? Okay, I'm trying to work out. It's like, is it Darth Vader's helmet? Is it that one up here?
It is.
God, no way.
But what you love is you love someone who knows their quotes from Star Wars. So you can see this would be a cake that Gavin would love because it's got little Yodas all around it and different spaceships from Star Wars. And then it's got live long and prosper and the Star Trek Federation symbol on it. So that's one that's not going to trigger you if you were a fan getting a Star Wars cake for your birthday. We have at the bottom there is another quote from Yoda, the Jedi Master himself. May the horse be with you. And I think that's one of those things where he's actually talking about what they baked to put into the cake. So just when you think you'd heard it all, may the horse be with you. Now, you might think that that's a porg in the middle there and quite a good attempt at a porg at that. But no, that's actually Chewbacca. That is a Chewbacca cake that the Vile has created there. And so the Vile is quite artistic in being able to interpret Star Wars characters to look exactly like they don't. And then you've got Yoda there. And the thing about Yoda, that Yoda was made and looked perfectly like Yoda, but then he ate all the other cakes.
I like it. Andrew said this is like someone sneezed and this was came out of their nose. That Darth Vader one, I would certainly agree with you on that one. Moneybag Sullivan, yeah, Darth Beaver. I'd certainly like the sound of that. William has brought up the Gillman, the 14-inch Gillman, which looks like the middle one, the Chewbacca one, actually, when you sit and think about it, even if the colors are a tad incorrect. Yes. So, yes, I was thinking it looks like Chewbacca or an Ewok. Either way, it's been in the microwave a bit too long, so it's never going to end well. The Maltese Chewbacca. I love it. Love it. The smashed up Vader helmet. I would never have guessed in the Minion years that was meant to be Vader's helmet. So unbelievable. But yes, if you're mixing up your Star Wars and your Star Trek with your live long and prosper, you know, the parents will always say, it's all star shit. Who gives a crap? You know, just here's your cake. Stop your bloody complaining. And in fact, speaking of complaining, let's check these out.
Now, there's a couple for those who don't know. Philip Nichols, who's joined us tonight, is the president of the Doctor Who Club of Victoria and has been for a couple of years and does a fantastic job with his wife. There's a couple of Doctor Who cakes here, though you would not know that. The middle one is a TARDIS. In fact, it actually says on it, this would have been a TARDIS if I wasn't so lazy, but I'm not. So the vial really doesn't like Doctor Who, and he gave me the finger on that one, didn't he? And then we wanted to get a Dalek cake happening there. Now, what looks like a glove puppet Muppet just thing on the end there, that is an actual Dalek cake that the vial did. So usually I tip my hat to the vial and his artistic and culinary skills, but I think he knows, because I'm such a big Doctor Who fan, he went and produced the absolute worst cakes of all. Interestingly enough, there's some Stormtrooper cupcakes there. The ones at the top were what the parent asked for their child's party. The ones at the bottoms were obviously a couple of Stormtroopers that got caught in the trash compactor. And again, like we had with Yoda on the previous page, you've got the R2 there that ate too many cakes. So you've got the fat R2-D2. Spankin isn't with us tonight, but there's a cake especially made for him by the vial. Do you want to read that one out, Dags?
Yep, it says, Dave, you are a huge disappointment.
And this is one of those things that we didn't cover in any of the previous files about cakes. The vial actually does put personal messages on cakes for people if they request them. In fact, you can ask the vial to put happy birthday, and he will ignore that request and put a different message which he deems more suitable.
Totally agree with you. That top right, that Dalek you said, Ange said it was a sandworm. I kind of agree with you on that one. Colin said it was exterminated, and it was probably exterminated by the PowerPoints that are right behind it, actually. So they've just plugged it straight in and decided to give the old Khaled mutant a bit of a zapper. And I've got to say, yes, when it comes to putting a knife through that, I think you couldn't do it quick enough. It is a bit wrong. So there you go. Very, very cool. But if you want more birthday cake goodness, here we go.
Well, with great cakes comes great responsibility, and you've got a couple of Spider-Mans here that haven't been very responsible at all. You've got Spider-Man holding a couple of balls there on the left. I don't know what that's meant to be, but it gets worse because he has enlarged balls on the left, but when you have enlarged balls, you need a bit of relief, and you can see he shot his web everywhere over the cake next to him. That is a most unfortunate positioning of Spider-Man and a really suspicious-looking amount of web. But if he's got that much webbing, he must have been eating some oysters, mustn't he, Dags?
Or some of the other birthday cakes, maybe.
Yes, maybe. If you want a cake that's going to impress and surprise your children, wait until they lift the box off of that Hulk. That's the cake that will inspire tears. You can't quite see it as well. You've got a Spider-Man cake there, which I don't know what happened. The vial was actually trying to make just a spider web, and then decided at the last minute to change it to Spider-Man. So put a smiley face and some eyebrows on it, but missed the rest of the facial details. And then we get, which I think is one of the most inspired cakes ever, based on Batman 66 and the legendary fight scenes. You've got a cake with some of the action sounds on. You've got pow and biff and ouch.
Yeah, ouch is the price tag it cost them to get that cake made. Chrissy, anatomically correct. Webs do come out of that. Yeah, never mind. And even Moneybag Sullivan has said something similar. So, yeah, when it comes to shooting the webs, what could possibly go wrong? Is that right? Very, very cool. Hang on. Is that Biff from Back to the Future? I don't know which one you're looking at. Oh, I get it, Biff. Very good. So, yes, with the Biff power and whatever. So, there you go.
Yeah.
Indeedy doody dotty. Absolutely love it. I've got to admit, personally, I think the Hulk one isn't too bad. You can see the effort's been put into it. And whereas a couple of the others, you can think, oh, yeah, they're a bit dodgy. But let's see if there's any better ones coming up. Oh, check this out.
So the vial can do any theme at all. You've got a lovely Minecraft cake there for anyone who's got kids into Minecraft or indeed plays it themselves. You've got an eerily uncanny version of Buzz Lightyear. And when we say uncanny, it's the Uncanny Valley version, not the so accurate that you're surprised. We've got a rather flaccid Prince Charming's castle. It's kind of a post-ejaculation castle.
Hang on. Did you say placid or flaccid?
Flaccid, placid. It's all the same when it comes to the Vile's patisserie. But we've got a really amazing Harry Potter. It's a love cake. We've got a really amazing Harry Potter there. He looks so much like Daniel Radcliffe, I just can't believe it. And then again, the Vile got one of those cake tins with the pictures of how you should paint the cake on the top. And the top, you can see it's the Little Mermaid, but Vile has decided to modify it to cheap hooker.
Hang on. Yeah, so good old Little Mermaid over here. She's definitely been chasing parked cars. The castle at the top, I couldn't help but think of it, right, when it was all standing up, and it'd be one of those things where it was all real. Oh, geez, I can't believe I'm going to say this. All stiff and rigid, and of course it'd be left in this hot sun, or the weather. Someone didn't turn the air conditioner off, or they did turn it off, and it got a bit warm, and all of a sudden it's just gone.
Yeah, I like Bob's comment there.
Knobwarts.
Knobwarts.
So what was that?
I was going to say I like that comment, knobwarts.
Yeah, absolutely love it. There you go. But yeah, you can imagine that, assuming the cake down here is for a little girl, you'd be thinking, mate, that's just so wrong on so many levels. But very, very cool. Oh, messages, mate, messages.
Yeah, so like we said, the Vile will actually put messages on your cakes for you, and some of these are amazing. First, you've got a Star Trek themed cake, and you can see how the Vile's mind works on this one, because it's the Star Prize Enter ship.
There you go. I can't see anything wrong with that.
Okay, we'll move on. This was a fantastic cake for Valentine's Day. Nobody Loves You. Another one, probably for Valentine's Day. Congratulations on your teen pregnancy.
Woohoo!
Well done for whoever that was for. This one, is one that stalks us every year. Death is closer than ever. Happy birthday. The one in the middle there, I think this happens when you guys get together and have your gaming days with Sully. Sorry for what I say during Mario Kart. It can get quite heated, can't it?
Yes.
And then the last one there, I don't know if anyone's ever chowed down on a giant cake like that before, but it looks incredibly tasty and inviting, doesn't it?
Looks like a plundered Jessica Rabbit. Oh, Jesus, where are we going with that? Unbelievable. So there you go. Some awesome messages for everybody out there. I got to say, the teen pregnancy one, I reckon, is an absolute ripper. So there you go. So what are you trying to tell me about all these cakes there, Mr. Aaron?
The Vile Patisserie is open for business, and all these cakes are available and well and truly violated.
Absolutely fantastic. So on the Vile's birthday, we've checked out some cakes, and it is absolutely fantastic. I'm going to say it's a big shout out to the Vile on this one, because he's a cool dude. I used to love it when he used to come to my place for parties. He just stayed till all hours of the night, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. We'd just be talking nerd stuff for that entire time. And he's the lad of all lads, which is particularly groovy. So there you go. All right, so there you go. That's the Vile's celebratory birthday cakes. Chocolate chatter. Oh, dear. All right, time for a bit of interaction from the audience. It's time for a bit of excitement. So let's get into this.
Ooh, baby, do you know what that's worth?
So we have our eBay section this evening. Mr. Aaron, what is our theme?
Well, because we are looking at Starlog and all things paper collectible later in the show, I thought we'd look at magazines on eBay. It's one of those sections we haven't really looked at, and some magazines are quite collectible, and some magazines you can't give them away. So there's a little column A and a little column B on tonight's show.
Absolutely love it. All right, let's kick it all off. What have we got? Oh, Donkey Who. Oh, geez, I'm bringing up my lunch already.
I had to slip some Doctor Who in. I knew Phil would appreciate it if I slipped a little bit of Doctor Who in. So this is one of those piecework collections where you collect a magazine with a DVD week by week, and it builds up to the entire series. And there was about 150 of these, because they did the entire run of new and old classic series. This is amazing because they're selling the magazines without the DVDs with them. So they've kept the DVDs and said, we don't need the magazines. So you're getting 30 Doctor Who DVD file magazines, no DVDs, from issues 40 to 70.
Some omissions. So there you go. All right, Ange, before he put the bid in before he even saw the item. So he said $75. He's probably regretting that now. Colin has said 50. Inga, good to see Inga joining the show. I haven't seen Inga for quite some time. It's at 125. Moneybag Sullivan, they have to pay $1,500 to have it. Yeah, I'm hearing you on that one, dude. Chrissy's gone 9. Phil has slipped in a nice 30. What does everybody else think? 30 Docky Who DVD files, mags, no DVDs, which probably really isn't much of a loss when you sit and think about it. 40 to 70 with some omissions. 10 ducks for William has said 10 a vial, 10 cents. Oh, goodness gracious, Mr. Vile. Guy said $90. William said 25. Gavin has said $5.80, which will round up to $6. Even Greg King, sadly, $2 for the lot at the garage sale. Yes, I'm afraid so. The funny thing is, when these things came out originally, they probably would have been like, oh my God, I can't wait for the next issue. But now that time has passed, people have sort of moved on and no one really cares about them anymore. So there you go. But do they care about them enough? We shall find out in a millisecond. 30 Doctor Who DVD files, mags, no DVDs from 40 to 70, some omissions. Did they go for absolute pittance? Or they go for a stack of dollars? Let's find out, because they went for a whopping.
They're all Greg.
$3.70. Well, how good is that? Maybe the Greg did get it. Oh, $2 for the lot. What's the deal with that, Mr. Aaron?
Well, I think Greg knows his Doctor Who, that's for sure. These are those type of things. A lot of these file magazines, not just Doctor Who, they did Star Trek, Star Wars, X-Files. A lot of these are very, very hard to sell. Sometimes, once in a while, they go for an incredible price, but most of the times they're op shop material.
And regarding their unbelievably cheap price, even Phil has decided to say yes, naturally. So there you go, $3.70. And the shipping is $16. You would almost wonder why you would bother. But is that going to be the trend for all these items? Oh, check it out.
Well, as we saw, Neighbours ended a couple of weeks ago, and we looked at some of the Neighbours clips. Well, this is a scrapbook magazine that was released in the 80s, and it's chockers full of your Jason and your Kylies and your Scott and your Charlene's, and it's got, 80 pages of double-sided colour photos. So this surely has got to go straight to the pool room. This has got to be worth a bit.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because at face value, you'd be thinking, oh, this is complete tripe. But there are a lot of Kylie fans out there. I mean, she's a bit of a superstar, especially. And in England, you never know how this would go. All right, so Edge has gone 50 cents. Colin's gone $5. Phil has gone $30. Christy, definitely gone the 1 cent. I can see that coming from Christy a mile away. So there you go. Oh, Inga, you need to pay me. Oh, that's not the way to go. Jeepers Creepers got to have a bit of patriotism here. It's like chucking a couple of bucks at least for these items. Vintage Kylie Minogue and Jason Donovan scrapbook, 81 double-sided pages. How good is that? $25 for Mr. Kelvin. You never know how this went. Oh, hang on. Moneybag Sullivan has gone for $15. Kelvin is at 25. Guy, 4,500 is gone. He's bucked the trend. What can I say? Bob has gone for $50. Violating Kylie and Jason as one should, if he should be so lucky, is the violet $1. William is at $35. I will laugh if Guy gets this because of the thousands of dollars. You do wonder. Vintage Jason Donovan and Kylie Minogue scrapbook. I tend to agree. I reckon this is complete tripe. But there you go. Weirder things have happened on this show before. So how much do you reckon it went for, everybody? So let's have a look. Vintage Kylie Minogue and Jason Donovan scrapbook. 81 double-sided pages like new. Very, very cool. I agree. You should be so lucky. It went for a whopping $600. What do you reckon of that, Mr. Aaron?
Well, when I saw that, I thought that was horribly, horribly designed, because the top picture there basically has Kylie not facing the magazine and her butt there. But then I realized that's why it went for $600.
This is a tricky one. No one is even remotely close.
I think it's Bob. I think it's Bob. That was $50.
Yeah, you still got to cough up another $550 if you're prepared to do that. So there you go. How about that? I was kind of hoping Guy would have got it at $4,000 or whatever, but
Yeah,
very, very, very cool.
that's
So
got
yeah,
to be the
see, look at that.
furthest away bid that's actually won the item, hasn't it?
Yeah, very, very cool. So, and you never know if it's somebody who bought this probably loves it too. So, very, very cool. Oh, Moneybags is saying some people have too much money. That is definitely the pot calling the nerd black. What can I say? So, very, very cool. Someone didn't grow up in neighbour's country. Kylie was a bitch. Well, there you go. Cop that, she says. All right, with that, we move on.
Here's an interesting one for those of us who are gamers and like retro gaming. This is N64, the Nintendo 64 Nintendo official magazine. And this is for 46 issues with booklets. Issues 1 to 11, 13 to 20, and 22 to 49. So we've all seen that retro gaming goes for crazy prices. But do you think the magazines based on the games do as well?
Yes, I would think it's a tricky one, actually. 1 to 11, 13. So there's a couple of issues missing along the way. But I agree. Some of the really old gaming stuff has really found a market these days. Ange has gone for 275. Inga has gone for 425. Moneybag Sullivan has said $50. Colin has gone for 100. So what does everybody else think they might have gone for? N64, Nintendo 64 video game magazines, good in good condition. 300 from Phil, which is pretty cool. Colin said 100. I can't remember if I said that earlier. Kelvin is at 150. Gavin at 50 cents. Oh, Gavin, he's clearly not a gamer. So what do you reckon? Christy has gone for $46. What does everybody else think? And Nintendo 64 magazine, video game magazines. Hang on, sorry, Chris. Hang on, Christy was 46. Bob was 400 round figures. Williams at 150. Violating 64 cents. Yeah, very, very good. All right, so how much you reckon it went for, kids? N64 magazines, they're not complete. 46 issues though, which ironically you probably wouldn't even read them now because they're so out of date. But you never know. So there was one bid. Someone just said, "Here's the money. Pack up, go home. It's all good." How much do you reckon it went for? They went for a whopping $500. What's the deal with that, Mr. Aaron?
Well, they are really collectible magazines now, and they don't turn up. And you've got issue 1 to 11, and then some of the later ones. The later ones actually go for more than the earlier ones, and they come with all these retro posters and stuff like that. The really interesting thing, I've had these before and find them hard to sell. I pull the posters out and put them in the poster rack, and the posters sell for more than I had them in the magazines for. So that's one of those crazy things that happens sometimes. But yeah, these are getting hard to find in good condition. That's a good collection for anyone that hasn't got any and kind of wants to go for a set.
Well done, Inga. You've turned up for the night and grabbed them. So how good is that? You still got to cough up an extra $75 on your way to go. And you never know, kids, if you decide to sell them individually, you could probably get all that money back and then some. So how good is that? But I agree, $500. Holy guacamole, they're just magazines. So indeedy doody dotty. So all right, moving right along. Oh, here we go. This is completely left field.
Now, this was an interesting one. 68 rare Bruce Lee Kung Fu monthly magazines from the 70s, including Trade Dummy. I don't know what that's meant to be. I guess it's a trade version of the magazine that they gave out as promo or something like that. So if you like your Bruce Lee, you like your Kung Fu, you like your martial arts, you like your sweaty men with their tops off, these are the collection for you.
And of course, when you won the bid, you're going to go, "Oh, wow!" Oh, very, very good. I didn't even know there was a Bruce Lee magazine. It's just the things that just astound you, eh? So there you go. All right. So what does everybody think of this? Ange has gone for $6,000. Moneybag Sullivan is at 650. Collins at 4,500. Christie's at 1,700. Suddenly, Bruce Lee's bringing out all the big dollars. Phil has gone for 500. Inga, who won the last one, is at 1,000. Bob is 750 nunchuckers. Absolutely love it. A Bruce Lee monthly magazines. What would they be talking about? He took a holiday for a month. What would they be talking about in that particular issue? Williams at 1,200. There were 7 bids for this. Where are we? Gavin is at 25, say $2,600. Violating Bruce Lee is one as a often shooters at 200. Kelvin is at 1,000. What do you reckon they were like new? These would have to be unbelievably rare when you think about it.
I know. There's no low bids this time, so everyone thinks they're going to go for something.
Yeah, no, very, very cool. So, yeah. And be kind of interesting to see how many they actually produced in the run. Be funny if there was 69, wasn't they? Just missed out on the one issue. And Guy has said 850. So there you go. So what do you reckon it went for, kids? 7 bids, 68 rare Bruce Lee Kung Fu monthly magazines. Who knew these even existed? And you get the trade dummy. Make of that what you will. Indeedy doody dotty. So how much you reckon it went for? They like new as well. So they've clearly been in someone's collection. How much you reckon they went for? They went for a whopping $769.
Does Guy get that? Oh, no.
No, Bob did. I think Bob did. Anything you want to say about this, dude?
Yeah, it's good they're in new condition because a lot of those magazines come stuck together because of all the soy sauce that gets dropped all over them.
That's where you're going with it. When you got pages stuck together, that's someone who liked their Bruce Lee a bit too much, dude.
Yeah, I was being a bit more subtle than that, Dax. But but yeah, I have never seen these magazines before. There is actually a huge martial arts following for that era of stuff. It's sort of when martial arts came into the fore and they had magazines, and Bruce Lee was huge and he was a legend at the time. So there, as you can see, there were a lot of bids on this, and they went for a lot more than I would have ever expected to get the Kung Fu magazines going for.
So, Bob, you've just got to cough up an extra, what's it, $19, and you're good to go, son. So, how about that? I mean, that's just astounding. It just goes to show, and we're going to be covering this off in our main discussion very, very soon. They made magazines for everything, but to have a magazine devoted to yourself, that's pretty groovy. That's even superstars, even like I'm trying to say like superstar actors and singers that don't get magazines devoted just to them personally. That's a pretty rare thing. All right, so we saw the Bruce Lee mags. We've seen the Kylie and Jason mag. All right, now time for some serious hardcore magazine collecting. How much do you reckon these went for?
Well, these are an amazing set. These are like the Doctor Who ones, but this is almost a full set. There's all 3 binders of the Star Wars fact files. Now, so many people started buying these. It was a huge, big piecework collection that expanded into an encyclopedia of facts and figures about the galaxy far, far away. I mean, these are almost more knowledgeable than you, Dags.
Yeah, well, I know. I'll tell you what, it's this is before Wikipedia became the big. Hang on, excuse me, the big thing for everybody. So when these came out, because of the beautiful pictures and they explained all this stuff, and it was all good, and they included the expanding universe because this is how far back they go. They were the in thing. Everybody loved them. Couldn't wait for the next issue. And you got 3 binders full. How good is this? All right, Andrew said $12.50. That's pretty unsettling. Moneybag Sullivan has said $5. All the information in them is completely out of date now, but they do look very pretty. Phil has gone for $1,500. Christy, 3 cents. One cent for each folder. Jeepers Creepers. Colin's gone for 15. Gavin's gone for 25. Inga's gone for 23. I'm not seeing the big numbers like I saw for Bruce Lee. William has said $50. How about that? If Gavin's even got a complete, well, not his complete set, mate, we're worth millions of dollars. This is before Wikipedia. This is made back in the 2010s or before the 2010s. Absolutely fantastic. Full of, really chock full of Star Wars goodness. Bob has said 250 Ewoks. Violating the fact files as the vial often should is the vial at 25. Kelvin has said 50. So there you go. And yes, they do cover the EU, and the EU has been discarded, but some people still love it. All right, so how much do you reckon it went for? Star Wars fact files, 3 binders full, lots of pictures and all this knowledge about Star Wars, and that's the coolest thing ever. It went for a whopping $80. Dude, what's the deal with that?
Well, there's 3 folders full there. That represents about $600. It was about $200 to fill a folder with those things. These are what I was saying before with the Doctor Who ones. They are never, ever worth as much as the original outlay to get the piecework and put the magazines together. Interestingly, I was looking for a particular set to include on this this episode, and that was the Star Trek files. But those things are so damn hard to find. There's a whole heap of them on eBay for 1 cent each, but there's not a single one even in the sold items at 1 cent for nearly full sets of them. So it really does show you, if you've got the patience and you really need those things, sometimes it's better to wait a couple of years and pick up someone's collection when they're downsizing than collecting them all the way through yourself. It does take patience, but I guarantee you, you will always find all of those magazines cheaper if you do it that way than trying to collect them along the way.
Yeah, it's funny because with the Star Wars fact files, of course, as we said, they are completely out of date, but they put a lot of time and effort into their production. And both, ironically, Kelvin and William, $50 a pop, and they're the winners of the thing. So, which is particularly cool. So, yes, I was surprised by that. But yes, unfortunately, these days with Wikipedia being the be all and end all regarding Star Wars knowledge, anything on paper based is completely out of date now, which is a bit sad. All right, guess what? Now, before we get on to our major chat, just going to quickly say about for those who haven't checked it out, go to our socials to keep up with the latest and greatest information that's going on with the shows, because not just us, but there's also Monday show and Tuesdays as well. There could be more things coming. Oh, how exciting is that? So very, very cool. Get a look when you get a chance. So very, very cool. Gavin said there's 5 folders all up, so they're past half. If those folders were full, then there's another 2 more to go. And you're cooking on gas, 18. But I agree with you. The old Star Trek fact files, yeah, they would, who knows, they'll probably end up at the bottom of an ocean somewhere for many of them. It is now time for our feature presentation. And this is a bit of a good one tonight, Mr. Aaron. What do you reckon?
Well, we were talking about magazines then, and as we can see, a lot of people don't use magazines and don't look at magazines anymore, especially the encyclopedia ones, because it's so easy to hop online or hop onto news forums or hop onto different groups and just see the news and find the pictures. Not me and Dags. We love our physical media and our old magazines. We have talked on previous episodes about how before there was the internet, the hub of all knowledge was Galaxy books, Space Age books, Minotaur books, alternate worlds, the magazine racks. And this episode, we're looking at vintage magazines. We're looking at Starlogs in particular. Do you have any memories about Starlog magazine or magazines in particular?
Yeah, so the big thing for, I guess, for a lot of people is that, of course, with magazines, you had to go to a place to get them, and not all newsagents stocked all the latest and the greatest. So, as you mentioned, in Victoria or in Melbourne in particular, it was Space Age books to a degree, definitely Minotaur and alternate worlds. And this is when Minotaur was in Swanston Street. And everybody would just gravitate to these places because you are right. I mean, the internet for us was on paper, and it's something that people can't even relate to today. To say, well, what's the latest and the greatest that's coming out? And of course, yeah, you have to like fight through all the crowds just to get hold of an issue to flick through it and see what's happening. Oh my God, there's this happening, there's that happening, and it's a time of our past that just doesn't replicate itself anymore because everything, as we said, is online. But when you had to physically hold the thing and you couldn't read the thing fast enough to get the information out, that was the hard part. I'm trying to speed read, I can't handle it.
Well, what you were saying just before reminded me exactly what would happen. It was very interesting. People might go in by themselves and they would pick up a magazine and they would stand there and almost mutter to themselves over the news they were reading. Or if you went in with a friend, Dags might pick up the Starlog and I might pick up the Starburst, and we'd both be reading different things. And I'd be going, oh my gosh, they're doing Elm Street 5 or something like that. And Dags would be, oh no, like Mr. Spock is dead in the Wrath of Khan. And it was like the internet spoilers, but in front of a magazine rack. And it's one of those phenomenon that was around for about 20 years, I would say, and started up with the birth of the glossy sci-fi magazines and then died off with the internet, because there are still a lot of those magazines around, but they're never the cutting edge for news anymore. And you never have anyone go in on their lunch hour and try and read them to get the gossip anymore, because they're out of date by the time they hit the shops.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the funny thing about the magazines is you took them as gospel. What you read was law, right? They could do no wrong, even if part of it was all news based and part of it was all just speculation based, right? But because you didn't even know who the writers were, right? They were just faceless people. But when you read an article about something that was coming out, you think, well, this is clearly correct, no matter what. And that was the thing. They became becoming like a religious thing to a large degree. I have read this is happening, therefore it is happening. It cannot be wrong. And and of course you'd be discussing this with all your friends. Have you read the latest issue? They're saying this is happening. How good is that? So
it's absolutely true. And a lot of time you would hear news and rumors which were right, but they wouldn't be confirmed till they were in print. And I was talking with a friend of mine in the shop today because we were talking about doing this episode, and episodes of Doctor Who came back in the 90s, Tomb of the Cybermen, and it went around fandom. People knew people who'd heard it was back, but no one actually really believed it until the first magazine hit Minotaur, probably 6 weeks after the news, saying Tomb found. And as soon as that was there, then everyone breathed out a sigh of relief and go, it's true. It really is true. Because it was like you said, it was gospel fact if it was in those magazines, even though, as we're going to look at this episode, sometimes it wasn't gospel fact at all.
Yeah, exactly right. I like this. Christy said you pick up a mag and have people reading over your shoulder. And that was the part. If you were like, I can't get there this week, I've missed about 3 weeks, you turn up and every magazine is completely different to the last batch you saw. You go, where the hell do I freaking start? And as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, one of my mates used to pick him up a mag, like a Starlog, and as he's flicking through the pages, he's looking somewhere else. Like, oh, what else is going on over there? He's not even reading what he's looking at. So it was just a mind overload, which is really, really groovy.
I don't know if you'd remember this. The magazine rack in Minotaur was at the front of the shop in front of the counters because they didn't want people wrecking the magazines, and they thought if someone was watching, people would be more gentle with them. And they had reading copies and everything else was kind of sealed. So you grab your copy if you could. And being a kid, I'd have to reach in and pull out. But down the front, Minotaur was notorious of having these thief protection stickers, which were like kryptonite. You couldn't get them off. So I would often put my hand in, grab a magazine and take a couple of steps back. And even though I wasn't near the entrance to the shop, set the alarms off, which was a big, if we're nerds and socially conscious, that's like one of the worst things that can happen in the shop like that. And of course, all these silent muttering readers would all turn around and look at you. And that happened a few times to me.
Good to see Dale joining the show. Dale said Starlog letters are gold. Angry readers writing to complain about how disappointing The Empire Strikes Back was. Funny enough, we've actually got some examples of letters later on, legitimate ones from Starlog. And because there was no internet, it was the only way to get feedback in. And I guess the irony would be that if you wrote a letter, whether it was a good one or a bad one, and you got published, because they must have received thousands of letters, they would have said, oh, we'll handpick a couple. You would have thought, my God, look at me, I'm a celebrity. It's like, I've actually got my letter published in Starlog, even if what I'm saying is complete tripe.
Well, I didn't get to put it in because we do look at Empire coming soon later in this episode. So stick around because there's some gold. One of the ones I didn't put in, which I wish I kind of had room, someone writing in, you haven't got Mr. Spock back for the Star Trek series. So before the motion picture, it was a series and they signed 7 of the 8. Us diehard Star Trek fans, we are not going to watch this series unless you have all the originals. It's 10 years later, and if you can't get the originals, don't even bother making it. And I just like, oh, this is like the forums these days, but in letter form.
Yeah. And of course, the thing was, you would buy the Starlog magazine or whichever magazine you're picking up. And of course, for at least a few weeks, it'd be like all latest, all current. And then, of course, time would pass on. Then you'd buy the next issue, then the next issue, then 10 years had passed. And they just become like relics of the past. But they've got a lot of things about them which are like still hold up even today when you go, isn't it interesting to see how the world existed back then? Not just the articles, but also the advertising and the merchandising and all the things that came with it. And the fact that they're still highly revered by everybody, because for us, it was our version of the internet. And of course, we're kicking things off with the good old 1970s. Is that right there, Mr. Aaron?
It is. So Dags and I were originally going to look at magazines from the past, but when we started looking into it, there is so much and there is so much gold. We are just going to pick a different one every couple of months and do a different magazine and a different era. And we're starting with Starlog from the 70s. It is probably the most well-known and most renowned of the sci-fi magazines to come out, probably the most successful and the longest running one.
Yeah.
And the other thing with this that is interesting, it actually started out, they were trying to do a Star Trek magazine, and Star Trek kind of wouldn't support itself beyond a fan magazine. So they broadened it to all sci-fi to see if it'd work. And of course, it was a massive, massive hit. And one of the things that was working in their favor, Starlog started in 76 when sci-fi was a bit fringe, but a little movie came out in 77 that really played into their wheelhouse that made sci-fi explode. So if you look at the early covers here, you can see some of them. Some of them are genre related, but a lot of them just have space pictures and rockets on the front because they hadn't even really defined the format they were going to do. It was a bit, Omni and future and pop culture all merged together. Now later, of course, it swerves right into pop culture, and you've got Star Wars and Star Trek and all the amazing movies. But at the beginning, it wasn't quite like that. The other thing Dags was saying that I just wanted to go back to, how you were saying there's all these amazing time capsules. What I found when I was researching this is the internet is the the all-purpose depository of all knowledge and everything, except you look through these magazines and there are pictures that you cannot find online anywhere. And I find this really interesting. You Google a topic and it says there's 1.5 billion hits or something. So you do Battlestar Galactica pictures. And after you scan through about 3 pages, so maybe 200 or 300 pictures, that's it for the internet. And they just start repeating. But you go through these magazines and you go, never seen that online, never seen that online, never seen that online, because a lot of the stuff that's online is, Allenby or different photo resource people who've put their archives online. But if these were photos that were especially done for Starlog and other magazines, unless someone has physically gone and scanned them, a lot of the stuff in these magazines just isn't anywhere else. So we should be really quick on, should really think about quickly discarding a lot of these paper resources, because there's a lot of stuff in there that just isn't online. And when we go through this episode, we're going to discuss a lot of these things as well.
A couple of things to cover off. So for those who haven't picked up on it, this is issue number 1 right there. So, and I thought this is interesting. So they've started with Star Trek, right? So now, of course, this would have been around the time when they're thinking about the new Star Trek series, which of course ended up being the motion picture. Just there, for those who wouldn't have picked up on it, David Bowie's new sci-fi movie. You reckon that would have got a few people buying this issue to see what that was all about? And of course, they're talking about the man who fell to Earth. So you got issue 2 up there, right? And as we roll along, you get to the Star Wars issue, which was number 7 over there. So you can see by issue 1, it's sort of kicking itself off. By issue 7, we've gotten to the big money spinner of the lot. So
yes,
yeah.
But at the time when issue 7 came out, they didn't. Obviously, Star Wars was a big hit movie. They did not realize how big Star Wars was going to be. So later on, you might see probably about after 1980, they might do 4 Star Wars covers a year. But at this point, it wasn't at that. What I really love about these early ones, though, you can see there's pictures from old science fiction, from the Earth to the Moon and stuff like that, which really has not the same appeal today as it might have to the people they were aiming at back then. The other thing I said to Dags earlier, there's a Space 1999 cover. Now, you've got to remember when this was put out, Space 1999 was pretty current. In Starlog, they didn't cover a lot of British stuff. And one of the things that I'm disappointed by, they really didn't cover Doctor Who. Until the modern era, they didn't even have a Doctor Who cover. But they covered Space 1999. And when I'm reading through it, it's because they all thought it was the new Star Trek. And it is a series that is very close to Star Trek in sort of the storytelling and the aesthetic and the pacing and things like that. So I found that quite interesting too.
We are going to move on to a different set of pictures, by the way. Because we're just dwelling on this at the moment. Dale's made a point of saying back then $2 was expensive. And the problem was there were so many magazines that what made you decide what one you're going to get was the covers.
Yes.
Right? Now, depending on what you're a fan of, like you were saying about, the Space 1999, you go, if I'm a fan of that, I'll grab that next to something that's got like Star Trek or like a 1950s movie or whatever. That's where you got grabbed. What's on the cover? And if you could flick through all the pages, you couldn't really read the articles because your brain just couldn't handle it. There was that much information. You just have to work out which one am I going to grab. And of course, back in the 70s, when all this started to grow and all these magazines appeared out of nowhere, because clearly all the publishers realized, there's a market here. Science fiction and pop culture is really starting to pick up. Just churn shit out and just see what happens, whether the information's good or it's bad or whatever. But it was always the hardest thing. Okay, which magazine am I going to get this week? So I can understand exactly where Dale was coming from. Now, we are going to move on. Otherwise, we'll be here all night. But the thing I wanted to bring up is obviously every one of them, 16 pages of color photos. So all these things were still in black and white at this point.
Yeah.
So that would have been a bit of a selling point, saying, we've got color pictures included, because most of the time they were just black and white images. So
the crazy thing is usually the color photos were related to the front page, but out of those 16, about 4 of those pages would be advertising as well.
That's exactly right. And funnily enough, some of that advertising by today's standards, you look at it and you go, that's really, really historical. Before the internet, Starlog 1 was at $2,000. Well, there wouldn't surprise me at all. And you're right, Dale. It was amazing interviews with creators and cast, and it was the only place you could get them. That was the key thing. So we're going to move on. Otherwise, we're just stuck at this one slide for the rest of the night. So, all right, dude, off we go.
So we're picking highlights through the early years of Starlog today. So ones that have particularly interesting covers or things that might trigger a memory or an interesting discussion. So if anyone remembers anything or wants to comment along, go ahead and do it. Interestingly, the first ads I can find for Star Wars, the Don Post masks, were in early issues of Starlog. So before even the Star Wars figures and toys were out, the masks were already being produced. And the other thing about Starlog is it was the first magazine that had behind the scenes articles on Star Wars. So you did have a couple of other articles in magazines that were sort of general exposés on Star Wars, but this was the first time you could actually see how the special effects were done. And you can see it even got number 14 had a cover of a matte painting. Now, for us, we've all seen pictures like this. At the time, that must have been absolutely mind-blowing because most sci-fi magazines would have, you know, Flash Gordon type action pictures, but you've got a magazine here that's looking at the special effects in the movie industry, which is quite groundbreaking.
Yeah, it was lucky for this one because they actually covered this off in the making of Star Wars with the whole matte painting of the tractor beam thing. So, so you're right to see the dude actually painting the picture was particularly fantastic. Now, the funny thing about looking at the covers is you look at what else is in the issue, what else is coming up. So you'll have the big spread across the front, but then you read all the subtitles that are coming in for other articles. So if you look at this issue just here, you got Project UFO, you got the Incredible Melting Man, right? That would have been an absolute grabber. The art of, I can't read that, Virgil Finlay, Capricorn one, but you got Saving NASA's Skylab. Oh,
Yeah.
remember Skylab back in the 70s? Jesus.
Well, Central Australia remembers Skylab. That's where it's all scattered at the moment. But it is interesting, like you say, they really had a grab bag of articles, and some of the stuff they had just wouldn't make it into magazines these days. They had up and coming artists and fantasy artists, and they might give 8 pages to pictures of just spacey kind of art, which is now an Etsy page. It'd never make it into Starlog magazine kind of thing.
Yeah, totally agree. Gavin's asked when did the gloss pictures start coming out? Probably 20-something years after the fact, once printing was a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
But definitely not in the early days. So the magazine, like as we said, Starlog started off at issue 1. By the time we got to issue 7, Star Wars was coming out. And then, of course, bang, here you go. It is the issue to get.
So this is what I was talking about. Starlog issue 7 isn't the first magazine to feature Star Wars, but it is the first magazine to do a behind the scenes on the special effects and the making of Star Wars. And it must have been, again, for Star Wars fans that were really starved of everything because they did not know Star Wars was going to be as amazingly popular as it was. It must have been something, oh my goodness, there's a magazine here with my favorite movie on the cover. Fantastic cover. I mean, black magazine covers always stand out, I think, in the poster racks. And that one with the special effects of the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter in space is a particularly striking issue, I think. A lot of the pictures remind me of the stuff that was out of the program at the time. And I do think this is probably because before Star Wars really went huge, probably the same press kit went out to everyone. So they probably had limited pictures to print, and they're all going to be the same. But you can see already here you're getting the Ralph McQuarrie paintings of the Sandcrawler there, and you're getting interviews and concept art. You can't see it so well underneath Obi-Wan and Luke. There's a concept of Hammerhead from the Cantina because people love the Cantina, and it actually took Lucasfilm by surprise because George Lucas was a little bit embarrassed by what got in there. So there were no pictures put out to anyone. Even the first set of Star Wars cards didn't have any Cantina aliens in. So they resorted to putting concept art when they were talking about them. So this is, again, of its time and shows you what they were doing in magazines to promote the movie. And obviously this magazine probably sold 3 or 4 times as much as all the other issues up to that point. I'm guessing that, but I would have thought that would have been the reaction.
So it's important to realize that science fiction media went through a massive change in the mid-70s. So prior to the Close Encounters and Star Wars coming out, science fiction movies, for the most part, weren't taken seriously by the studios, even by the audiences to a large degree. And of course, in the 70s and the late 60s, there were very depressing films, very post-apocalyptic, very much like the future's completely ruined because the Cold War was on and the Vietnam War was on. People were miserable, right? Everybody was miserable, and studios didn't take science fiction very, very seriously. Close Encounters comes out, it's a massive success. Star Wars comes out, boom, the whole world opens up. Studios realize, shit, there's a load of money to be made in making science fiction movies, and then of course TV shows were doing their thing as well, and of course the industry just opens up, right? And it's just a complete free-for-all. So magazines like Starlog and Starburst and all those guys who were around at the time, they get to capture on that and get the market and just go jump on board. Now, of course, as the audience, from our perspective, you would devour magazines like this because it was the only way to get information, like the only way. There was nowhere else to go. So you looked at every picture in detail, you read every article in detail, and you absorbed it all because it was, as far as you're concerned, it was like the gift from God, so to speak. And to have an issue like this one that focused just on Star Wars, a film when it came out just like blew everybody away. It's like, mate, I've got to devour this. This is like gold. And you would read the same thing over and over and over again, look at the pictures over and over again. Or if you ended up with the multiple copies, cut the pictures out and stick them in scrapbooks and whatever else. So that article, all this article there, whoever wrote this and whatever it's about, that would have been treated as like absolute gospel by all the fans. And it was a fantastic time to be a sci-fi fan, especially if you were young. So I agree with you, dude. That picture alone on the cover, I mean, you look at all the features inside, include all these other things. It's almost like, who cares about that? This is just covering the one thing that I want to look at. And every picture would have been like, oh my God, this is awesome. So yeah, cool.
The other thing, it's a little bit early for fandom, but this used to happen through fandom all the time. This kind of articles in magazine was a godsend for fan editors, because usually these had come into a specialty shop and, you know, a couple of people in the club would get them, and then they would be cut up, photocopied, and rewritten and put into fanzines to get content for fanzines. Now, this is something that happened through every kind of fanzine, but that's something that's stopped now. But the whole cut and paste thing still happens. Where news comes out on one website, it's cut and pasted onto another one, and it snowballs. The same thing happened in a lot slower time frame with magazines, where I'd get the latest Doctor Who magazine and we go, oh my gosh, like this is amazing news, cut and paste it, put it into Sonic Screwdriver, it goes out to the membership that way. So these were kind of the seminal cornerstones of fandom as well.
So one of the key things about the magazines is they told you things you didn't know, right? And of course, we're here in Australia, so we don't get told anything. The magazines are how you get educated. So you go, oh, okay, there's new movies coming out. There's new TV shows coming out. As we said, the sci-fi world has exploded in the 70s, okay? So when a magazine comes out and you look at it and go, holy shit, what is that? I've never even seen that before, never even heard of it before. That looks mega cool. That's when it's like, got to have it, got to read it, I need to devour it. And, of course, examples like that are with Battlestar.
Yeah, I'm a little bit young for these magazines in the 70s. I remember this happening in the 80s, exactly the same as you're saying. But again, if Star Wars has just come out, and it's one of the first movies where fans actually cared about the people doing the special effects, because they were so mind-blowingly good that they even developed fans for the behind-the-scenes people. So when something comes out looking the same quality as Star Wars, made by some of the same people, going to be on television, going to be blockbuster television, and this is brand new, and you don't know what it's going to be about, and you've got pictures there, and you've got beautiful Jane Seymour, and as you were saying, Cylons in the amazing chrome, and then you've got the Battlestars that can, you know, match it with a Star Destroyer kind of thing. This is the kind of mind-blowing thing where you'd see the magazine, and you'd probably read it cover to cover before you were going to go and buy it. That used to happen all the time, where I'd read a magazine, almost all the articles, and then buy it, and then on the train on the way home go, well, I've kind of already read all this in alternate worlds.
Well, the cool thing is you talk to your friends, right? And you go, have you seen this, right? So if one person bought an issue of Starburst as an example, and you got a Starlog and go, there's a show called Battlestar. How freaking awesome is this? So it was an age of discovery. Everything was new. And for that reason, there was no monotony in life, because you're thinking, oh, what else is happening? We've got new shows, new movies. And then, of course, you had to wait for them to physically appear on our shores. But the fact that you got drip fed, there was like carrots on paper just dangling in front of you all the time. And it was a wonderful time. Now, as we mentioned earlier, because there were so many magazines covering different things, so you have a cover of Battlestar, cover of Star Wars, cover of Space 99, and cover of this. You go, where do I turn? So it's the kind of thing that you just can't replicate these days, and it was a fantastic part of history. So yeah,
the biggest faux pas, it hasn't happened yet, but it did happen in the 80s, is when Starburst and Starlogs used exactly the same cover for their magazine, because there was a brilliant picture that would be released by a studio, and you'd go in there and go, Starburst and Starlog both have the same picture of the Enterprise and the same kind of type on it. But yeah, it is one of those things that would really draw you in.
So we're going to show you a couple of issues, just some various issues. Now, I want you to look at the top left-hand one, right? When this was coming out, imagine this is the first image you've seen of this movie, how you would have reacted. And, of course, we're talking about Superman, right? How friggin' grouse does that look? Eh? Superman arrives. And, of course, this would have been out months before the movie arrived here. And that's the thing. This is how people got tantalized, and they ended up getting excited about what was happening, and it was an exciting time to sort of read about what was going on, and like with the commercials as well, with the ads for the Star Trek dolls and the Star Wars masks on the right. So, what I reckon, dude?
Yes, I used this one. This does skip forward a year or two when Superman was about to be released. Starlog also launched in Japan because it had become such a popular magazine so fast in America. The Japanese picked it up, and the Japanese version would often be probably 80% the American content translated into Japanese, and then 20% Japanese. The interesting thing for collectors, not just of magazines, but of toys and stuff, the amount of material that was available in Japan matched the stuff that was in America at the time. And as we see now, if you're a collector, Japan has these huge shops and these huge areas and precincts of different collectibles. And I never understood how they got it. But looking at the Japanese Starlogs, they seem to get a massive amount of merchandise, and sometimes stuff that was sold out in America and not available. Some of those Star Trek aliens were really hard at the time to find anywhere. That you've got all of them available mail order in Japan. So interestingly, I think the covers on the Japanese issues are more dynamic. We've talked about this with posters than the American issues. And down the track, there's another one coming up with Wonder Woman later, where we will see the same content in the same issue and how much better the Japanese issue looks.
You talk about the merchandising, and of course, a lot of these magazines did have merchandise in them that you never saw anywhere else because there was no other way of receiving that information. So you'd be looking at, oh my God, there's action figures for this, and there's helmets for that, and masks for that. You go, oh, and then you'd find they wouldn't ship overseas, or there'd be a whole lot of issues trying to buy them from this country. Sometimes in Australia, we did get the rough end of the stick when it came to purchasing things. And it was just the downside. But, if you're like me as a little kid, you'd be just looking and just drooling, just imagining what this stuff would be like. It'd be absolutely spectacular. So,
yeah,
very, very cool.
Happens a lot.
So, in the 70s, of course, Star Wars is a huge thing. As we mentioned, Close Encounters going along, and Superman, all the rest of it. But, of course, on the TV front, you had the granddaddy of the TV world, and, of course, good old Star Trek, which at this point has been going through a massive revival. With the all the reruns and the animated series that had come out, and Star Trek was probably on an equal footing, at least with Star Wars from a fan popularity point of view. So, what do you reckon, dude?
Yeah, at the beginning, Star Trek, there was more Star Trek covers than Star Wars covers, and there's obviously a huge fan base that supports the Starlog magazine, and that's why it did so well. We're at the period in Star Trek's history where could have been a series, could have been a movie, not sure what they wanted to do. Lots of articles on Star Wars has come out. Now maybe Star Trek should be a movie. That's where the future lies. It's really interesting. I couldn't write everything down, but there's an interview with Gene Roddenberry where he says, my vision for Star Trek is like James Bond now, a big action spectacular every 3 years. So yes, we're looking at doing multiple Star Trek movies, not just one. Now it's very interesting because of all the franchises I would describe Star Trek as, it's not the James Bond movie franchise.
No, now it's hard to read this, and I've just looked at this now. So this particular issue here, the Star Trek one, Star Trek Pinball Art Contest. How's that? Wonder how did that all turn out?
It's crazy. Yeah. I don't have that issue, so I couldn't look it up.
This is clearly advertising the contest. You sort of wonder, well, who won that? What did they get? And where did that art end up? So,
probably got a pinball machine or something cool like that. The other thing in that issue is they advertise production cells from the Star Trek animated series. They are super, super cheap. There's all these ones of the Enterprise and stuff for a couple of bucks, which are now tens of thousands of dollars to get those action shots. And they just have them in the pages of Starlog, selling them in bulk to fans.
So you were the publisher of Starlog and all the other magazines, right? And suddenly, as from 77 onwards, the whole world is completely different, right? Everybody's jumped on board the sci-fi bandwagon. Everybody's producing, studios are producing stuff everywhere, and it's almost like, okay, we can't keep up. There's just too much going on. But once in a while, out of that like 4 or 5 year period before you got to 1980, a couple of movies come out or are being announced, and look, the world just goes completely apeshit over it. And because it is such a new sort of direction for movies to go into and for an audience to dial into, sometimes something would come out or be announced and you go, holy shit, I did not see that one coming. And this is an example where if you didn't see it the day before or you read about it the day before, you would never have guessed it was going to happen. Then it gets announced and you go, oh, wow, we can't wait for that. And of course, here we are today, decades later. And of course, it was Alien, right? So when the Alien issues all start making their appearance, and it's like people realizing, holy guacamole, what is this thing? What is the deal with this? This would have had massive sales for Starlog and other magazines that promoted Alien. What do you think?
Well, this is crazy because, like you said, it snuck on everyone. No one really knew what Alien was going to be about. There's 2 issues there before the movie came out talking about Alien. What do you see or what don't you see in those articles that is quite interesting?
Well, you don't see the alien.
They don't show the alien in any of the pictures, which I think is genius because you can see the sets are massive and beautiful and it's a great high budget sci-fi, which is going to intrigue people. But there's none of what you see later in articles where you see Kane on the table with blood everywhere and stuff like that. There's none of that. It's very concentrating on the making of the movie and it coming out. So it would have been a huge shock. You'd have got people who see this and go, oh, is this going to be the next Star Wars or Star Trek? And it's a horror movie in space. And the other little thing in the corner there, and it must be rarer than the Kenner Alien, because I never knew this existed. And I don't know anyone who's had it. Maybe Spankin would know. There is a Don Post face hugger mask that comes in a clear like bell jar that you keep it in. It was handmade. Every one of them was numbered and actually certificated to the people who bought it. I think from memory, it's $399 for one, which was in the 70s, big bickies. I didn't know that existed, and I've never seen one come up for sale. So that's a rare item.
A couple of things. So with Alien, you look at this picture here of the space jockey, right? And imagine that, seeing that for the first time thinking, what the friggin' hell is that? That is an alien and a half. You would have thought that was the xenomorph, right? So you have to buy the article or the magazine just to learn what this thing happens to be. And of course, that's where everybody got introduced into H.R. Geiger's skills. Now, what was interesting is that Greg said he bought the top right one because of the Doctor Who episode guide. Good to see you got Doctor Who spelled wrong. So we're talking about this one here, right? Now, look at this. This is what we talk about, like when they invent crap. Darth Vader exclusive interview. What do you reckon that would have been about? I reckon they just invented all this rubbish and they put it on the cover, no less. How many people, and I would have been one of them, because I was only 10 years old when Star Wars came out, would have gone completely apeshit for an exclusive interview with Darth Vader. How unbelievably wanky is that concept?
It is interesting because for a long time, and you'll remember this from the Hollywood theater when they put their shoes in prints, they pretended Darth Vader was a real Darth Vader and C-3PO and R2-D2 were droids. And so I don't know what that interview is. I wouldn't put it past me of them to make up a fictional Darth Vader answering questions, or it could just be with David Prowse. Who knows?
No. I tend to agree with you. It doesn't say Dave Prowse interview. It says Darth Vader exclusive interview. So you'd have to think it is actually an invented thing. But that would have sold magazines. People would have said, oh, shit, Vader's getting interviewed. And I know me, I was really dialed into the Darth Vader thing. Wherever I saw the word, I just like beeline for it. Much like Greg said, he bought it because of the Doctor Who thing, right? So it's a funny, somebody just would have invented this ridiculous article, put it on the cover, and they made sales out of it. I mean, it's like that. That's how you sort of you cash into the your target audience. What can I say? Sticking with the alien theme. So it's the full color movie novel and all the rest of it that came out. So there was a fair bit going on with Alien when it was all happening.
It's interesting because Alien is notorious for not having a lot of merchandise sold when it came out because it was too scary for kids. But you can see from Starlog, this is an ad from Starlog, there was a ton of merchandise. There's an entire page of all different items you could get there. And then, of course, their hot plastic review is the Alien figure. But at this time, Starlog started to produce its own merchandise, and the first one was the Starlog Communications Handbook, which was like a handbook and activity book for, I guess, teenagers and kids kind of thing. So they actually became popular enough that they could merchandise themselves. But here must be the weirdest thing that's ever advertised in Starlog: superstar Billy Graham in space. And basically, I'll just surmise what it says there. Billy Graham is a wrestler, sort of World Federation Wrestling, old school 70s wrestler. He loves science fiction and always wanted to go to space. So he hired a sci-fi artist to paint a picture of him in space, and he thought it was so good, he advertised them that people could buy on the back of Starlog magazine. And the way they sell it is, if you're a wrestling fan, you've got to buy it. If you're a sci-fi fan, you've got to buy it. And if you're a collector of rare prints, you've got to buy it because this is so rare, who's going to really want it kind of thing. And I thought they really would try and sell anything through Starlog. Another one of those things that you could never sell now.
Totally agree with you. I've just used the magnifying glass of truth to look at the communications handbook. And what you have here, best readers' letters to Starlog. So imagine getting into that. You'd be thinking it's the greatest thing ever. There's a couple of other things, a special pen pal section. Remember the days of pen pals? That's how you communicated with everybody else throughout the world. And a fan club directory. I reckon that would have been a ripper. You do wonder if any of those fan clubs exist anymore. Of course, in Australia, there was two at that time. There was Austrek. And the MSFC, at least in Melbourne, they're still going. Everything else, I think, is sort of shut down now. So,
yeah,
how good is that?
Well, the fan club directories are interesting in the pen pals because they would list people's full names and contact details and addresses, so you could write to them. If a fan club did that now, and I know the Doctor Who Club used to, in the 80s, print their entire membership and phone numbers and where they would, they'd probably have to try and sue them for breach of privacy or something.
Indeed. Now, one of the things that Starlog did do, and I suppose other magazines did this as well, they started realizing that the cover is the most important thing. Having one picture of one item isn't enough. You've got to start sticking all sorts of stuff in there now. And, of course, they made them a lot more attractive to look at, but a little bit more busier as well. But it's how people got grabbed. Their attentions got grabbed, mate.
Well, this is what I was talking about earlier. You've got Starlog there. It's number 24, and it's I think it's number 6 in Japan. Would you rather buy the Japanese version or the American version? I mean, it's got the same picture of the Hulk, and that's about it, really. But as you said, they start putting more and more things on the cover, and it's exactly for what you were saying, why Greg bought the Doctor Who and you'd have bought the Darth Vader, because the more franchises and the more pictures that they have on the cover, the wider the audience that is going to grab that magazine will be. So you've got some really interesting stuff there where you've got Wonder Woman, which is going more into comics than you would think science fiction, and the Hulk and Battlestar Galactica and Buck Rogers. You've got Mork and Mindy, and it really is showing how diverse Starlog is and how popular it can be to print such a broad range of things and still sell. You've even got a James Bond cover because James Bond went to space, so it's a sci-fi movie from '79.
It's interesting looking at the number 24, the big one here. Everything here listed is American except for Space 1999. So good old Doctor Who doesn't even make a mention at this point, even though, as we all know, Doctor Who in the 70s at this point was actually massively successful. So Space 1999 got the gig, but Doctor Who it did not. So there you go.
Yeah. The other thing is the interesting choice of movies where you can see stuff like James Bond and Superman and Star Wars making the covers, but Meteor, it's one of those sort of old-fashioned covers again that is more like the sci-fi science magazines of the 50s and before that than you'd expect on a genre movie-related magazine. But I mean, it was the movie that was coming out, but that doesn't seem as dynamic as they could have probably made that cover.
Yeah, and I reckon they would have had a lot of times really in the editorial business sitting there thinking, okay, what are we going to focus on today? Last month we did this month we do that. And I reckon they would have really been scratching their head, because the selling of the magazine was critical to the success of the business, because the last thing you want is for someone to look at the cover and go, oh, they've got a picture of this. Oh, this magazine over here's got a picture of that. I've got to go for that, because that is like the grooviest thing ever. But of course, you don't want the same cover as your competitor. So you can imagine there would have been a lot of discussion or a lot of really hardcore thought put into it, because it was the selling point. It was the one thing that made a person pick it up and look at it. And I reckon that's particularly cool. Mr. Phil has made a point of saying, the Doctor Who Club started in 1979, but that issue I think we looked at came out before then. That's the reason why I mentioned just Austrek and the MSFC. So, but did they get it right all the time? Now, it's funny, a certain franchise can sell a lot of magazines, and sometimes history will say, well, who would have thought this would have worked? And we look at it now, we just laugh. But at the time, this would have sold shitloads of issues. And of course, it was the holiday special for Star Wars, because nobody knew what it was going to be about, even though I love the fact that it says Body Snatchers Return at the top.
Well, it is interesting that this magazine probably holds the most pictures for the Star Wars holiday special that turned up anywhere. There was no merchandising for this once it hit. Lucasfilm pretty much disowned themselves from it. And as something that was an up-and-coming thing, this would have been an amazing thing to see. Star Wars had been a huge hit. It had been around for a year or two. Empire Strikes Back was in production. You'd been starved of Star Wars. You probably had your Splinter of the Mind's Eye paperback, and that was about it, and maybe some Marvel comics. Then you see this picture of the cantina with all these new weird aliens that do look just as good as they did in Star Wars, and it's going to be a TV Christmas special, a holiday special that's coming up. And then you open it and you've got Chewbacca's family, and let's face it, they do look as good as if they had appeared in the movies. And you've got serious articles. And then it starts going a bit awry when you see, oh, Donna Summer is in it and B. Arthur is in it and some of these other things. But as a kid, I still adored the Star Wars holiday special when it came out. I never had this magazine till later. But it would have just sold a skrillion copies just be doing new Star Wars.
Absolutely, and that's the key thing. So regardless of whether it was good or not, that doesn't matter. It was the fact that it was Star Wars. It was going to be on TV. It's Star Wars TV special. That's all you needed, and that would have just gone ching. I'll take my money, thank you very much, because you didn't know any different until it came out. That's the key thing. So amongst all that, you've got the interview with Marion Jansen from Athena, and down here you've got Ralph Bakshi talking about Lord of the Rings. So there's all this other stuff going on, but the Star Wars TV special would have been the absolute winner. That is what you call capturing the market big time, and it would have been an absolute ripper. Funny how hindsight and how history's sort of seen things differently, but there you go. Dale said he loved the Star Wars holiday special. When it first came out, everybody did. It hasn't stood the test of time, but there you go.
So the other thing Starlog started to do, they realized that they could cash in on their back issues, and obviously they would have a building stock of photo references and things like that, and put out special books. So they had the Starlog yearbooks, but they also specialized into other things. And you can see there, they would pick a different theme, and they'd take either articles out of old Starlogs, or they do an A to Z, like a mini encyclopedia, A to Z of starships, A to Z of villains or guns, or they do behind the scenes special effects issues or alien planets and things like that. So if you had a particular theme that you really loved, Starlog started catering in special magazines. They're almost bookazines. They're like small books, some of them. Did you have any of these? I had a couple of these and absolutely wore them out because I loved them so much.
No, I didn't have them, but I do remember them. And because there were so many young people at the time who had seen the movies, and they were just getting drawn right into them. And a lot of them were being drawn into by the visual effects and the props and the whatever else. And that's where Cinefex also became a bit of a thing as well, a magazine devoted to nothing but special effects. But people wanted to know, okay, well, where are these things coming from? Because we're seeing things we'd never seen before in movies and TV shows. Even movies that stretch back like 60 years prior. And people were just like really, really dialed into it. They wanted to know how it was all done and the technology behind it. And it was sometimes in the making ofs, which at that point, if you remember, a making of for a movie went for an hour as opposed to what we got later, which only went for 30 minutes. It was like a trailer. You wanted to know how all this stuff worked, and you just devoured it all. And ironically, as it turned out, a lot of people got into the industry, the special effects industry, from reading these magazines.
Yeah.
and seeing how it was done. So it opened up this whole Pandora's box of all these people to head down this new career, which was, spectacular.
Well, my memory of this is when I was in primary school, particularly, and you had free time in the library, you'd run into the movie section and you'd get the book on sci-fi or the book on horror movies, and then everyone would crowd around the table and you'd go through all of it and go ooh and ah at all the pictures. You could now go into Minotaur and for pocket money price buy a magazine that had all those pictures that you were interested in, and you could get it and take it home and keep it forever. I particularly loved the one on aliens. I remember just going through that time after time because you could see the aliens in pictures, but you'd never see videos weren't around.
No.
They were never on TV. So it was the only visual reference. And I remember movie stills were often better than what they appeared in the movies. So I'd get the Starlog book on aliens and you'd see, invaders from Mars and invasion of the body snatchers. They have all these awesome pictures. And then you'd sometimes be let down when you see the actual movie because it doesn't.
But that's why your imagination works so well. You'd see the thing in the article. I mean, Bob said he read about science fiction toys, read it to death, and your imagination just took you to all these places. What is all this about? You see a picture of something, fill in the rest, and your mind would do the work. And sometimes you're right. Sometimes it was too big for the film to sort of do it for you. But as you see in these pictures here, there's so much going on now. There's so much for everybody to sort of latch onto, that it could do no wrong. And in fact, if anything, they probably produce more issues of magazines at this period of time than anywhere else, because they realize there's a massive market for it all. So, and I agree with you, the special effects ones, they would have been absolutely devoured by people keen to know how these things were done.
I think the special effects articles in Starlog were popular, but unlike some of the other magazines that were totally devoted to special effects, they couldn't do that in Starlog. So by doing these specials, they had their cake and ate it too. Interestingly, that Heroes one, I had to pull it up. Do you know who the greatest heroes in sci-fi are, according to this? Space 1999, John Crane. I couldn't believe it. I was like, you've got to be kidding. But they really did love their Space 1999 in the 70s.
I bet you, though, the villains version of this book would have sold a lot more than the heroes version, just because generally the villains look more cooler. So there you go. Another thing that looks particularly cool, of course, are your aliens and spaceships.
Yeah, so this is the one, I had both of these, and I love the alien ones. And I used to look at, again, Space 1999 and think that was fantastic. It reminded me of the Crinoid from Doctor Who, which I was always disappointed wasn't in there. That was the closest I could find to the Gillman for the Vial, which is a particularly cheap price one. But I would look at these and I would think they were absolutely fantastic. I had not seen half of the movies at the time that were there. And you can see by the pictures on the cover, for a kid that was into sci-fi and monsters, to be able to get this for a couple of bucks, it was absolutely amazing.
So, yeah, you look at the aliens one down here, as you said. So you got the Metalonian mutant from this island Earth, and you got Gort from Day the Earth of Steel. They've chucked in Chewbacca. I'm surprised Chewbacca wasn't a bigger picture, to be frankly honest with you. But clearly they are pushing the Space 1999 angle there. You got Star Trek there and Star Trek there. And it's yeah. So, it's a bit of an interesting sort of mix, isn't it, really, when you sit and think about it? Yeah. And you've got the spaceships and whatever. So it's very good.
Really, and the other aliens is the little black and white pictures up the top there. But you've got Peter Cushing and Christopher Reeve again from Space 1999. They really pushed Space 1999 for some reason. But there you go.
Very, very cool. No, it is good stuff. So there you go. Oh, and robots. Well, wasn't this a time for robots?
Yeah, Fantastic Worlds and Robots. And this was another one that captured me. I've always liked sci-fi art, and the Fantastic Worlds used a lot of the glass paintings and background paintings they used in the original Star Trek. Now, at the time, I'd only seen them on TV quite blurrily, or on video even more blurrily. So to see crystal clear images of these amazing paintings from City of the Edge of Forever and things like that really blew my mind. And it really did show you how much work went into something that was sometimes not even hardly seen on the screen. And there's the robots issue there as well, which I never had, but would have probably been one I'd have grabbed if I'd have seen it, because you've got all your favorites. You've got Twiggy, and you've got Muffet, and you've got the Robbie the Robot, and R2 and C-3PO, and a whole lot of other stuff. So these are really surefire winners. In the days before the internet, you'd almost have them as essential items in a sci-fi library.
And if there was a lot of good pictures of them, you ended up, and I've done this before, end up cutting them out of the book because you wanted to put them somewhere because you just want to see them all the time.
Yeah.
And there was a gluttony of all this material coming out, and it was all unique, it was all different, it was all original, and it wasn't just color by numbers like it had been in the past. All this stuff was taken seriously. All these people had come into work to create and design brand new things, and you were just blown away by it all. And unfortunately, the magazine, well, not unfortunately, fortunately, the magazines were how you learnt what was going on and saw these images. And as you said, sometimes the pictures were fantastic. You go, oh my God, I can finally get a decent picture of what this thing looked like. And yeah, that's why these things were so important. But along with the models and the weapons and all the rest of it, of course, was the toys as well, dude.
So this is, I think, what Bob was talking about. So this was my favorite magazine for a decade. And it's just really a collection of sci-fi toys that stretches back from, I guess, the turn of the century up until about the end of the 70s. And what is amazing about this, there's all these amazing toys. This legitimized Star Wars collecting for me, because up until this point, I got this in the early 80s or mid 80s, Star Wars was for kids. Like, collectors did not collect Star Wars figures. That didn't come till a lot later, kind of after the movies, the original movies had finished. To see all the Star Wars figures in a magazine with Robbie the Robot and Buck Rogers laser guns, it almost legitimized in my head, it's okay to collect these. They're not just toys, they're a collectible. What makes me laugh, though, the entire Star Wars range up to that point can be shown in 2 pages in a magazine. Now, that is an easy collection to collect compared to how many there are now.
Yeah, it does come down to if only you knew where we're going. And, of course, there's the picture down here. That's it. That's all there was, kids. How good is that?
At the time, there were only Star Wars. There's no Empire figures out yet, and there's a couple of the play sets and vehicles that they picture as well. That's pretty much it. And the rest of the modern sci-fi, you've got an Eagle again, the first wave of Battlestar Galactica figures, some Lost in Space robots and Forbidden Planet, and one solitary Dalek up against a Twiggy from Buck Rogers. But I loved this magazine. I would often pore through it and wish I had every single toy in there. And it is still one of those magazines, although not complete, not 100% accurate and very old and dated. It is a lovely piece to have in any collection.
But that was the thing. You looked at the magazine and you just wished. It's like, oh, if only I had that. And, of course, some of those things never came to this country, which made it even harder. So the big studios, so you got your Foxes of the world and you got your Paramounts of the world, they're all producing sci-fi stuff. And, of course, one company said, well, we can't just be left in the dark. And good old Disney had to make an appearance, and they decided to just chuck their 5 cents in to try and get into the sci-fi thing. And, of course, they did with the Black Hole. So there we go.
And again, the Black Hole issue, Disney's $20 million epic, they really were trying to play up to Star Wars. But the Black Hole issue is it 31 there, is very special because it has some of the first reportings on Empire Strikes Back. And there's that little tiny clipping there. So many people believe that it may well be true, that it is hinted a romantic triangle of Luke, Leia and Han becomes a serious issue in Empire Strikes Back, and that it is resolved once and for all that they say that Leia chooses Han Solo, Leia chooses Luke Skywalker, Leia runs off with Chewbacca. At least Lucasfilm officers had the kindness to flatly refute this possibility. And that was the earliest, I think, that Empire Strikes Back was mentioned in a Starlog magazine. So big things are on the horizon for the 80s.
And you knew once Disney were getting involved, there was going to be some serious competition going on, even though, like, you look at that Black Hole picture, now you're thinking, that looks awesome. That looks really, really cool. By today's standards, most people have forgotten about the movie, but that's not the point. At the time, it was a really hot property. Sorry, go on.
As a kid, I loved all sci-fi, and I thought the Black Hole was amazing. My son, who loves Star Wars and some of the other ones, goes, Black Hole is boring as watching paint dry. So
yeah. But he's seeing it through 2020 eyes as opposed to 1978, 1979 eyes. Now, it's actually 10 o'clock, right? That's actually the end of the main presentation. But we want to cover off what the rumors were. As like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I think Evan Dale brought it up about the rumors and the letters and all the rest of it. This is all text-based. We're going to read it all out. So we're going to continue on. So if you wanted to see more of the pictures and all the rest of it, you won't see any of that. But if you're interested in learning more about the rumors about what was going on specifically for the Empire Strikes Back, right? This is what Starlog produced at the time. They put these rumors in, And I haven't read these yet, and I don't know how off the mark they were or how on the mark they were, but this is the kind of stuff that would have got people completely juiced up, thinking, oh my God, how good is this? So we've got a few slides to go through. So as I said, it's 10 o'clock, so if you want to stick around, we certainly encourage you to do so. But we're just going to read out some things. Rumors are occurring for The Empire Strikes Back in the late 70s. How good is it? All right, so we're going to chug along with it, and hopefully you're going to enjoy sticking with us. So we're going to start this one off. Rumor file from Starlog, The Empire Strikes Back, right? The special effects team at Industrial Light and Magic near San Francisco have been working on an experimental process that uses holography, whatever the word of that is, and makes it possible for an image of the Millennium Falcon to fly off the screen and up into the projector beam. What the friggin' hell's that, dude?
That's freaking awesome. It just didn't happen.
I know, that's just complete rubbish, isn't it? Holography. What the hell's holography?
To do with holograms.
Yeah, well, clearly, but I kind of don't get that, do you? So, so that was a rumor. So how good is that? All right, so there you go. Dale said he loved The Black Hole. It was a great movie, actually, The Black Hole. I still love it, and you can actually watch it on Disney Plus, believe it or not. So there you go. Very good, guys. Happy for us to keep ploughing with it. All right, rumors about The Empire Strikes Back. Remember, you got to put your brain into 1978, 79 mode for this, right? What would happen in the sequel to Star Wars, which of course was the biggest movie in the planet at the time? What's going to happen, kids? All right, here we go. On a jungle planet, where'd that come from? Where Luke and Han are seeking allies against the Empire, the two enlist a race of winged aliens called the Quarrels. Make of that what you will. Word has gotten around that the Emperor will make an appearance in The Empire Strikes Back, which he did. Equally persistent are the rumors that he will be played by Orson Welles or by Christopher Lee, which was not even remotely true. But the jungle planet, where did that end up, dude?
Yeah. Well, they got the scoop on Christopher Lee 20 years early.
They did, actually. Yeah, actually, was it 20 or 30 years early? Indeed,
30.
the Quarrels. Do you reckon that was meant to be the Quarren instead? So there you go. What do you reckon?
I don't know. Quarrel was James Bond's friend in Dr. No, as far as I know.
Love it. So there you go. And don't forget, we would have been lapping this up. Oh my God, there's a jungle planet. The Empire Strikes Back. And because then you see the trailer and it's like, hang on, we're in the snow planet instead. All right, here we go. What else is going to happen? All right. Near the climax, Han Solo crosses lightsabers with Darth Vader. Where's that coming from? Although Han doesn't really know how to use the weapon, which is true, he's doing fairly well when suddenly the light beams are fused together and Han and Vader's life forces are intermingled. Luke has a chance to come to the rescue, but if he kills Vader, might he not kill his friend too? What's the deal with that?
If you had read this and then you went and saw it, you'd be either really disappointed it didn't happen or really happy that it didn't happen, depending on what you thought of the idea.
What I think happened is someone has seen or heard that Han brings out the saber at some point, right? And they go, why would Han use a lightsaber? Oh, he'd only be using it to fight a bad guy. He wouldn't be using it to cut open a tauntaun, right? So whether they've seen a still picture or someone has mentioned, oh, by the way, I was on a shooting set and they had, Harrison Ford got to swing a lightsaber, and they've just invented this rubbish. The whole, I like the whole thing of the fused together. Oh, mate, the beams, you kill one dude, you kill them both. What's the deal with that?
It is interesting. Before Rise of Skywalker came out, there was a lot of rumors. Rey and Kylo are a dryad in the Force, and they're fused together, and the Emperor drains their energy, and it's very similar to the rumors for Empire Strikes Back.
But can you imagine at the time when people would have said, "Oh my God, Han and Vader are going to have a fight in the lightsabers. What's the deal with that?" So all they would have seen is a still picture of Han with the saber on Hoth, and they would have gone completely nuts. They would have believed everything.
Can you imagine if you believe this? You would watch the scene where they went into Cloud City and Vader was in the dining hall, and you're going to be thinking, this is where Vader and Han have the lightsaber, and Luke's going to turn up and rescue him.
Yeah, exactly right. Very, very cool. And you are right, Kelvin. It is about crossing the streams. All right, so we're off the jungle planet. We're on the snow planet. So while on the ice planet Hoth, our intrepid rebels are attacked by stormtroopers. That's kind of true. Although the rebels defeat the troopers, kind of not true. The representatives of the Empire knock Chewbacca unconscious and take him as their prisoner. Well, that didn't happen until Rise of Skywalker. Although Leia insists that Chewie's rescue must wait, that other rebel business must take precedence over an attempt, Han defies the orders and takes off in the Falcon to rescue his friend and co-pilot.
I actually think George Lucas was reading this when he gave the story ideas. Well, it wasn't even George Lucas, J.J. Abrams for The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, exactly right. Han rocks off to save his friend. Well, that's true. He would have done that. So there you go. All right. Yeah, here we go. All right. Luke and C-3PO. That's an interesting pairing. Are captured by a horrendous alien, stop motion animated, so the story goes, who dumps them in a tank-like prison filled with a breathable liquid. That's obviously the Bacta tank. The only way the alien can be killed, Shades of Dracula, is to drive a metal stake through its heart. The only metal around, unfortunately, is C-3PO. And Luke melts the droid down to fabricate the weapon. Oh, Jesus.
So now we know the origin of the goldenrod card on the Star Wars. He was about to drive the rod through the Dracula of space.
Now we know why in Force Awakens, 3PO had a red arm, because they'd taken it off and stabbed it through this alien and they put it back on him. And that's actually the blood of the alien. So there you go. Oh, my goodness. Where'd that come from? And people would have swallowed this too, thinking, oh, my God, that's just freaking awesome. So can't wait for that.
The interesting thing is, probably the Bacta tank, they did think that. And if you saw a production still, you probably didn't think Luke got injured at the start of the movie and was put in a Bacta tank. So
yeah, that's right. They did. Remember, you see an image and you just invent all this stuff, right? Yeah. I like Dale saying there's a schoolyard predictions. Well, they're apparently in Starlog, so maybe it was schoolyard people who sort of come up with the idea, but somebody would have believed everything that we're reading out now, because there was nothing to contradict it, right? So, and of course, when The Empire Strikes Back was coming out or being made, there was nothing to say, well, what's the story? Nobody has any idea. All right, so our working title is The Empire Strikes Back, and as I said, it's part of the plan that George and I had from the inception of the original film, must be Gary Kurtz.
Yes.
What we wanted to do was relate every subsequent Star Wars adventure as an episode of a continuing story, which is true, like the old serials used to do. We were going to call this movie Star Wars Episode 2, The Empire Strikes Back, but we ran into some problems. You see, although this story is a direct sequel to the first movie, we have 3 more stories that we eventually want to film that actually occurred before the point where the first Star Wars begins. And that would explain why you have it as episode 5.
So that was a rumor. That was actually an interview from, as you said, Gary Kurtz. So it was all true.
Yep, exactly right. So very, very groovy. All right. Okay, this is a follow-up to that. So we have been toying with the idea of ignoring the numbers completely. Instead, we'll give each movie episode a unique title. I mean, if we had to give each film its true number in the series, this movie would be called Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Oh, the irony of that. The first film would be called Episode 4. Can you imagine how complicated it would get? Funny that. If we released a story like that publicly through a press release, thousands of people would be totally confused. Everyone would want to know what happened to the other 3 movies. Well, we know what happened to those. How about that? So, and of course, in the end, when we got to the sequel trilogy, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker, they didn't put episode numbers in. So how about that?
Well, I was thinking, can you imagine in the playground, your little Johnny who has this episode of this issue of Starlog, and you go to school and you go, guess what? Han and Vader are going to fight and they're going to be fused together, and everyone goes, oh, that's cool. And then you go, but this is actually episode 5, not Star Wars 2. And all your friends go, what a load of rubbish.
And I can say from absolute first-hand knowledge, right, because I was there at the time when Star Wars got released as episode 4, it was like, where are the other 3? How? It was confusing. It was like, what have we missed, right? And of course, we wouldn't know anything until decades later, but it was a bit of a brain strain. And of course, everybody's just speculating. Well, apparently there's 3 other chapters. We haven't seen them yet. Well, where are they? Where are they ever going to come up? You know? It presented a lot of discussions, and especially with Empire being episode 5, and you go, all right, okay, we're going forwards, but what's backwards? So
Can you imagine the Mandela effect of all the people that saw Star Wars in the cinema and it didn't come up episode 4, A New Hope? Years later, it comes up episode 4, A New Hope, and you're like, wait a second, I don't remember that.
Yeah, so the story is that when the film first came out, there was no episode 4. It was only when they realized they made a lot of money and they said, okay, we're going to do sequels now. We'll put the episode 4 in, and away we go. So, but yeah, I know it would have been a real brain strain at the time. And of course, if they had started as episode 1 for A New Hope, right, they could have easily have done that and people would have just accepted it. But the prequels, of course, could never have existed. So unbelievable. All right. So that was the end of our rumors. Now, this is what, like Dale was talking right at the start of the presentation about letters, what people wrote in. to Starlog about Star Wars, right? And The Empire Strikes Back and other shows. So this is some of the letters that, decades later have appeared here on our show. So let's have a look at it, see what they've got to say. All right, first one at the top. There's been an argument in our house about Darth Vader. My dad thinks he's a robot, but I don't. What do you reckon of that? So Starlog responded to that comment, right?
Yes.
Okay, this is the second paragraph. Darth Vader, the malevolent Dark Lord of the Sith, is not a robot. Thank the Lords of Kobol for that. Vader's stiff, robotic looks arise from an incident during his Jedi youth. In a recent issue of a rock fanzine, George Lucas explained that after killing Luke's father, funny about that, Darth fought Ben Kenobi. During the duel, he fell into a volcano, which is not too far from the truth. His horribly mutilated body is now housed in a metallic suit, a working iron lung. And that exactly pretty much covers over to what we have today.
Well, I can tell you, until Empire Strikes Back and you saw Vader's helmet going down and you saw there was someone inside, I myself as a kid did not know if Vader was a robot or not. So obviously someone wrote to Starlog to clarify it, and they found another magazine that George Lucas had given an interview in and cleared it all up.
Yeah, when I was a kid, people were wondering about stormtroopers, whether they were robots or not. But I remember in the novelization, it specifically says they were humans in armor, not mechanicals. And yeah, we all thought that in school, this is like schoolyard chatter. We actually thought the droids were real and that Chewbacca was a real alien, like a legitimate alien, right? Yeah. And there's three of us. And how you decide if he's a real alien or not? One kid says to the other kid, he's a real alien. The other one says, no, he's not. And the first one says, well, he's real. Do you see any zippers on the costume? And so it's just silence. And we go, shit, he must be a real alien. There's the logic of a 10-year-old, dude. So there you go. Absolutely love it. All right. So back to the letters. My top at the top. My friend says that Star Wars was filmed in its entirety and cut into 3 parts, of which we have seen the first. And Starlog said, your friend has an excellent imagination. So that's kind of true to a degree.
Well, it was. They just filmed it a long time later.
All right. And this is off on to talk about Superman the movie, right?
Yeah.
Now, you know how Superman the movie is looked upon these days. This is what somebody said about it when they first saw it. This is the third paragraph. I have just wasted $8. Oh, my God. And 2 hours of time watching the new Superman film. The film is simply a botched up mess that is receiving too much publicity. The special effects are well done, but the storyline is very weak. Many fine performers were put in the film so that their names could be used in the advertising. For example, Glenn Ford, who does not appear long enough to allow him to develop the character of Jonathan Kent. I feel that the public is being cheated out of its hard-earned money by a lot of phony publicity that oversells the product. The excellent special effects are useless without adequate story development. You could use that argument about a lot of movies made today, couldn't you?
Yeah, and I probably wouldn't even have thought about that for Superman. I thought it was a long movie with character development and great actors and great special effects, but it just proves you can't please all the fans.
Now, the question is whether whoever wrote that comment, what they say today, right? Now, he coughed up $8, not happy, not a happy camper. Would he look back and go, yeah, I was kind of wrong about that. Superman the movie still is the best superhero movie all time.
I'll tell you when he had his epiphany, when he walked into Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, and then goes, maybe I was a little bit strong on Superman.
Yeah, exactly right. Some of these little writers don't have enough love in their lives. Well, some of them, yeah, obviously, they were like, okay, I'm going to sit through this thing and I think it's complete tripe. I mean, retrospective reviews are an absolute classic thing. What people think when they originally see something, years later, they look back and go, and as you said, they look at the movies that come out afterwards, they go, yeah, maybe it wasn't so bad after all. But the irony, the fact that someone these days saying, how can you hang shit on Superman the movie, man? It was freaking fantastic. But at the time, obviously, $8 not well spent. So there you go. All right. This is an absolute classic. All right. So there's always someone in the know, right? This is a letter to the show, the top paragraph. The sci-fi picture to end them all is now being cooked up by George Star Wars Lucas and Steven CE3K. That's what he was known for at the time, Spielberg. The pair are planning to co-write the picture for Lucas to produce and Spielberg to direct. It's scheduled for 1979 after the pair have cleared their current commitments. Can you please get some information on this? All right, so and obviously later on this could have become Raiders of the Lost Ark. But at the time, apparently, this is what Starlog said. Apparently, no one but the New York Post has heard of the proposed teaming. A Post editor, when questioned by Starlog, cheerfully refused to divulge his source, but admitted that he got the facts from a close friend of Stephen and George. The mystery movie, if there is one, is yet to be written, titled, or made public knowledge in any way, shape, or form. And then, sure enough, 3 years later, Raiders of the Lost Ark comes out. So there you go. How about that?
That was Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that was famously, I think, discussed between them on the opening weekend of Star Wars when he was on holiday in Hawaii, I think.
Yeah, so it wasn't the sci-fi picture to end them all, but it certainly was the adventure movie to end them all when you sit and think about it. So how about that? So there you go. Some really, really good stuff there. That's the end of the letters, by the way. So we've actually finished our entire presentation. So hopefully everybody sort of enjoyed that. What do you reckon of that, dude? How good was that?
That was a lot of fun. It's always fun looking through old magazines. And I think the thing is, for me, I don't know about you, when I was growing up and I would read an article in a magazine, I can often go back to that time and that issue and remember the gist of what was in there. Whereas now I read something online on the internet and I've read it, digested it, and it's gone a couple of days later. It was a great time having those sort of physical magazines to leaf through. They even have a nostalgic smell now, the old magazines, to me anyway. So thanks for everyone, all 12 of you who've sat up for probably our longest episode ever, I think. And we will be looking at other magazines for the time. There's a magazine called Fantastique that has some amazing predictions for Return of the Jedi, which are absolutely acid trips that we'll look at some point. What have you thought about going back over the magazines tonight, Dax?
Oh, it's fantastic. It is a part of history that only a certain generation can really appreciate. And unfortunately, a lot of the Starlogs that people bought in the end and they collected and then they found they didn't need them anymore. And like people lost interest. The movies that they were discussing had long since come and gone. And a lot of them sort of got thrown out. Some people have collected a lot of Starlogs and other sci-fi mags of their past and hung on to them. There's a lot of really good nostalgic information in them besides the pictures, as you said earlier. So it was a fantastic part of history. I was lucky because I lived through all of it, right? I got to see it all firsthand at the time. And I wouldn't trade that with anybody, those experiences, because they were just fantastic. And those magazines, whichever one you picked, they were like the Bible. They were like the most important thing you could have in your hand at the time, reading about movies that either were coming out that you loved or things that had come out and you said, I need more information. What else can you give me? Because there is just nothing out there. And unfortunately, that's sort of not the way it is these days. So it's been absolutely fantastic. So there you go. Anyway, we're going to buzz off. Any final words before we go for the time, Mr. Aaron?
No, the only pros with the internet is you don't need bookshelves to keep them on. That's a big issue with collecting magazines. But apart from that, magazines all the way.
Totally agree with you. So there you go. All right, guys, we'll leave it to a party hard rock on, and we will see you all next week. All the best for now. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Or rip them out of the bag.
Or not. Cut up those pictures like I used to do, and then realize afterwards, mate, I've just ruined a good magazine. Especially when you had a picture on either side. You go, which one am I going to stick in the book? Anyway, we'll cross those bridges at another time. Okay, see you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.